We can call this meeting to order. Si guste, okay, por favor. We do have most of our committee members here, but to make sure, now, roll call.
Avery Bradley. Here. Bella Fontaine Knox.
Here.
Candelario Diaz.
Here.
Candace Jones. Here. Tito Altamirano.
Here.
Carol Calandra.
Here.
Cory Rojo.
Here.
Diane Filiposian. Elena Lee.
Here.
Ella Tang.
Here.
Emmanuel Gomez.
Present.
Ernesto Partida.
Present.
Gabriela Perez.
Present.
Gina Lopez.
Present.
Irene Wong.
Here.
James Bull.
Here.
John Quintanilla.
Present.
Julia McCallum.
Here.
Marilyn Johnson.
Here.
Matt Kamara.
Here.
Melissa Anderson.
Here.
Mo Shermo Hamadi.
Here.
Raquel Torres Rotana.
Present.
Sheila Rose.
Here.
Sylvia Talar.
Here.
Tracy Dawson. Sorry. And Wayne Schroeder.
Here. Thank you, and I know I can speak, I forget, Ramos isn't here, so we are recording, so I'll make sure I speak into this. Next, would you please, rise if you're able and willing to do the pledge of allegiance? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we have our land acknowledgement and I'm not going to read that for us. Pasadena City College is a learning community within the indigenous homelands of people who have been known as the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians of the Chisquiquanga Village and Peace Nation. Today, we acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this land on which we gather. We also honor the legacy of the African diaspora and recognize that the United States, as we know it, was built at the often fatal expense of forcibly enslaved Black people. We are indebted to their labor and the labor of many Black and brown bodies that continue to work in the shadows for our collective benefit. PDC and its faculty, staff, and students recognize that we are all simultaneously teachers, learners, and guests on these lands. This acknowledgement is a small part of an ongoing process of working to raise awareness about histories that are too often erased or forgotten, to recognize our place in this history, and to affirm our commitment to social justice, systemic change, and anti-racism. Thank you. And for the next order of business, we're gonna have public comment on agenda items. One of the things is, again, I'll have a timer here, but we have 3 minutes for anybody who's gonna be speaking. We have a handful of them. I will let you know with my fingers, because there are no lights, that you have 30 seconds, and then timing. With that, I'm gonna ask our first guest, Francis Godinez. And just so the next two are ready, will be Carrie Russo and Nadia Pinonesa.
My name is Francis Godinez, and I serve as the Secretary of the Classified Senate. The Classified Senate Executive Board formally submits a vote of no confidence in the Superintendent President search process overseen by the Board of Trustees, led by Board President Christine Kwong. On November 15, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the composition of Screening Application Committee consistent with Board Bylaw 2431. Further, on December 13, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the candidate interview committee composition for the superintendent president search. Despite having established membership for screening and interview committees, the Board of Trustees, in violation of the Brown Act, has unilaterally changed the composition of both groups. By adding the BOT to the screening and interview committee, the board president has solely and without consultation disregarded the process. Since the previous decision took place at their respective Board of Trustees opening meetings, it is clear that this modification was made behind closed doors. Since the previous decision took place, The board president's disregard for board bylaws and policy not only demonstrates her lack of commitment to procedural practice, but also illustrates her lack of respect for her campus colleagues and community members. This tactic intended to manipulate the hiring process is rigorous and inconsistent with the mission and values of Pasadena City College. The Classified Senate Executive Board cares deeply about Pasadena City College and the selection of the next leader to this organization. These ongoing accreditation violations will not be tolerated, and will be issuing formal complaints to ACCJC related to the board's inability to follow its own published board bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Carrie Abuso.
Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Fuso, and I serve as the student advisor for student activities here on campus. Just to let you know, I have sat on a presidential hiring committee, so I understand the weight that you all carry here. But I'm here to express my disappointment in the process that is taking place. There's so many different variations to this process. It is deviated so far. It's not something that any of us recognize from our normal HR process. That being said, the one that I'm here to really speak on today is my really concern with your timeline. You are asking this, you are as a community being asked to be starting today, despite the fact that the application close date doesn't happen for almost 20 days. So you can start them today, January 25th. The applications close at midnight on February 12th, and then you'll be asked to submit your responses by the 20th. So when you look at a calendar, if you compare that to our academic calendar, there's a lot of issues. You look at the first thing is that February 12th happens to be the start of finals for interview session. We have 5 students on this committee who are serving, who will be asked to wake up on maybe the 13th and see a whole slew of applications in their mailbox and asking them to read during finals. Part of our values as college says that we are student-centered, and this is pulled directly from our website. We value student-centered and student-first attitudes, processes, policies, and culture that will lead students to student-first decision-making. By placing the changing needs and educational goals of our student population at the heart of our decision-making, the college is committed to not only student-first, but student-inclusive governance environment. This timeline that you've established places our students' educational goals at jeopardy. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair. People turn in stuff at the last minute, and I would hate for them, because I read these, to open up their reading file and find that there are 30 more applications and 20 or plus more pages. And you're asking them to give that a fair read while they're studying for their finals and or taking a well-deserved break before they start spring semester. I'm asking that you re-examine that timeline and take into consideration and place our students first. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Nadia, and after her will be David Simon.
Afternoon, I'm here to speak about the executive assistant conflict of interest for the current support to this process. The role of executive assistant for board trustees is to support the needs and actions of board trustees. Yet, actions demonstrate the superintendent, president, executive assistant has been providing the support during this election process. This represents potential conflict of interest as this individual supports the current interim superintendent president who may be considering applying for this position. Superintendent president, executive assistants involved and not the executive assistant of board of trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, David Simon, and after that will be Lindsay Rules.
Hello, I'm David Steinman. I serve as the coordinator of the Management Association. The Management Association Executive Board formally submits a vote of no confidence in the superintendent president search process overseen by the Board of Trustees, led by Board President Christine. November 15, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the composition of the screening application committee consistent with board bylaw 2431. Further, on December 13, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the candidate interview committee composition for the superintendent president search. Despite having established membership for screening and interview committees, the Board of Trustees, in violation of the Brown Act, has unilaterally changed the composition of both groups. By adding the Board of Trustees to the screening and interview committee, the board president has solely and without consultation disregarded the process. Since previous decisions took place at the respective Board of Trustees open meetings, it is clear that this modification was made behind closed doors. The board president's disregard for board bylaws and policy not only demonstrates her lack of commitment to procedural practices, but also illustrates her lack of respect for her campus colleagues and community members. This tactic intended to manipulate the hiring process is egregious and inconsistent with the mission and values of Pasadena City College. The Management Association Executive Board cares deeply about Pasadena City College and the selection of the next leader for this organization. These ongoing accreditation violations will not be tolerated, and we will be issuing formal complaints to the ACCJC related to the board's inability to follow its own published board bylaw.
Thank you. Next up is Lindsay Ruiz, and after that, Albert.
Good afternoon, my name is Lindsay Ruiz, and I'm the treasurer for the Academic Senate here at PCC. And I have some concerns about the timeline specifically. What is the latest iteration of the timeline? Why does it keep changing? This is a Brown Act violation. Why does the Board of Trustees get 2 votes? Why was the rubric built on the profile rather than a job description? For the timeline points, on 1/9, we received the matrix, screening committee was supposed to receive the matrix, that did not happen. On 1/17, the assessment matrix form, screening committee was supposed to be able to submit edits, that did not happen. 2/20, noon deadline coming up, screening application reading committee, this is the first day of the spring term, this is a problem for students, also for faculty, managers, student services, etc. Applications could come in the week of 2/13 when student committee members are slammed for finals. This was not thought through. And for 2/22 to 2/26 is the deadline to submit the interview questions. This is a 4-day turnaround for edits to questions. There's also my point 2, bylaw 2431 violation. The board should not be part of the screening or interview process, and they should commit to offering interviews to the 8 candidates that we forward. The board did not change the committee makeup, but rather affirmed the current personnel, which does not include any members of the Board of Trustees, so they should not be involved in the screening until we give them the number of candidates they requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Up next, we have Pauline Sanchez-Segovia, and after that, Armia Walker.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Pauline Sanchez-Segovia. I'm a counseling faculty member as well as an academic senator. I'm really excited to speak to you all today. Why have a committee if we're not going to be heard? Is it for show? Does shared governance matter? The presidential profile was used to create the rubric or assessment form, but not the job description. It is the practice of PCC to allow the entire selection committee to collaborate on the establishment of the rubric and scoring guide, which is based on the job description. Of further concern is the recent information released. The documents found on board docs state that the rubric has been approved. When and by whom? The timeline was not followed. The timeline states that the rubric should have been viewed and edited by the committee, but members never received it. Furthermore, the document states that the form is to be used by the Board of Trustees and committee members. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the last public comment, Armia Walker.
Good afternoon, my name is Arlene Walker, and I am counseling faculty on campus, and I also serve as the Vice President of the Academic Senate. The Academic Senate Executive Board formally submits a vote of no confidence in the superintendent president search process overseen by the Board of Trustees led by Board President Christine Kwong. On November 15th, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the composition of the screening and application committee consistent with Board Bylaw 2431. Furthermore, on December 13th, 2023, the Board of Trustees unanimously approved the candidate interview committee composition for the superintendent president search. Despite having established membership for the screening and interview committees, the Board of Trustees, in violation of the Brown Act, has unilaterally change the composition of both groups. By adding the BOT to the screening and interview committee, the board president has solely and without consultation disregarded the process. Since the previous decisions took place at the respective Board of Trustees open meetings, it is clear that this modification was made behind closed doors. The board president's disregard for the board bylaws and policy not only demonstrates her lack of commitment to the procedural practice, but also illustrates her lack of respect for her campus, colleagues, and community members. This tactic intended to manipulate the hiring process is egregious and inconsistent with the mission and values of Pasadena City College. The Academic Senate Executive Board cares deeply about Pasadena City College and the selection of the next leader of this organization. These ongoing accreditation violations will not be tolerated and we will be issuing formal complaints to the ACCJC related to the board's inability to follow its own published board bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment on agenda items. And we will next moving on to item number 2, which is information and possible action. Our first one will be update on screening application reading committee orientation and EEO training. If I'm not mistaken, that would be led by Yuri.
Hello, everyone. So I just want to make sure that all of you guys have attended the EO training. I got the list all of you guys have. Before I finish, I do collect the confidentiality forms. Just remember that your staff's role in this committee is to treat all applicants fairly. Also, if you have any family members, any grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, sons, daughters, anyone living in your immediate family that will prevent you from being on the hiring committee. You are also only to discuss and review applicants when you are together as a committee. You are not to Google anyone. You're not to also bring in any personal information you may know about any applicant. And you will only discuss applicants when you are together as a committee. If there's anyone on the poll you don't know right now, eventually you'll have access to the applications. If there's anyone that has applied that you feel that you cannot treat them fairly, you will either talk to me or to the firm, depending what it is, we'll deal with it at that time. Otherwise, if you feel like you cannot treat anyone fairly, you would have to remove yourself from the committee. And I think I mentioned it last time as well, is if any of you have written any letters of recommendation for any of the applicants, you would have to remove yourself from the committee as well. So, last time I handed out the confidentiality form. Do you all still have that? If you don't, let me know. I'll give you another form, but I need you guys to sign off on it and forward it to me.
It's going around.
There's one around? Yeah. Any questions? So if you all have signed it, can you pass it down so I can collect them, please?
Another way getting these documents, another different. Yeah.
Yeah, it was double sided.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I don't think. Yeah. Okay, doesn't like extra. think it's a difference. Is it the same one? It's the same. Oh, okay. I just have. You're exactly that, just.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there a new one? Can I ask the chair? They're not. Sorry, Gary. Yeah, that was my original from this tower. It might have been.
That's number 8. The one we gave the last time. The one that you gave.
Oh, I wonder. Yeah, mine's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually on what?
The one that we have for 8.
You should be signing the. Okay, that's it. Okay. Right. Do I have all of them?
Yeah. Not yet. Where I am. Sorry. You are aware.
Well, this is. Yeah, the thing is.
Do I have everyone to sign one?
Is that a question or?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a question on the floor. Wayne?
My concern is that like, if I sign this, are we gonna even address anything that was communicated? Because like,
Yeah, so as far as, yes, so again, we have a number of other agenda items that are still part of, and one of the things of all of this, just that I know some of folks have not had whether committee experience like this, being that this is information of possible action, is that we're able to have discussion on any of these items as the presentation come along. You are able to ask questions and whatnot, that is just, it's an open meeting. Yeah, so any comments or questions you may have, feel free to put them out, just like that, raise your hand, just be recognized before speaking.
so in other words, just, sign this so we can go forward.
Yes, exactly. Question?
I do have a more specific question regarding the last line that you are aware of, understand and agree to the proposed timeline for completion of your responsibility as a legislative committee member of this human. So by signing this, would I agree to the current timeline that I disagree with?
So the question at hand is, if, again, I know there was a question whether they couldn't hear her. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting our recording. So Steve, I'm not sure if Dietrich is still here. If we get a secondary mic for the committee wanted to ask questions, Kim, they can, pass down to, I know. So the question that was asked, I already turned in my, confidentiality, but was that the last point was that we are aware, and agree with the proposed timeline, but the question that was added is if they disagree with the proposed timeline, that would, the reason why they're not, choosing to send. I think that was the question. Well, yeah, that was the question.
Okay, well, at the board meeting that we attended, the board approved the timeline without us, we made it clear that there was week of, and some of the timeline that we have to confirm those dates with the committee. The board approved the timeline, knowing that we would be filling in those dates. So this timeline has been approved by the board. And I think you have your minutes from that meeting that you can refer to, where the board formally approved the timeline with the understanding that we would be confirming the meeting dates with this committee.
I heard you correctly, though, you're concerned that if you stop it, that means that you are agreeing with every action. I don't think those two come together in that way. Right now, you are indicating that whatever you learn, whatever you do is confidential.
Well, then the line number 7 because all of the shire decided it.
It's a mic.
Oh, okay. Then can line number 7 be crossed off prior to me signing it because that line states that I understand and agree to the proposed timeline, which I do not agree with.
The timeline has been approved, so that would mean that you would be, removing yourself from the committee because the board has approved the timeline. They have the sole, responsibility to do that. It has been approved. So it's up to you. I mean, you're a volunteer for this. And so that's really up to you. You have to choose on how you want to move forward.
Thank you, then, we have Dr. Raquel Cruz-Betana.
I'm hearing what you're saying in terms of being conflicted, right? That perhaps you understand what the timeline has been approved, but you yourself are conflicted with that timeline because you personally disagree. What I advise students all the time is that if you're signing something and you're putting your name on it, if there's any part that you personally disagree with, you can always write in right next to that, like by the timeline, you can put in your own comment and your whatever you choose to put in, and then just initial it, indicating that that is your own statement being part of the agreement that you were signing. So that you notate and report your concerns.
Dr. Gina Lopez.
I don't think I need a minute.
It's more because, we're recording for once, one makers. Thank you.
Well, my concern is, the same, and this is from my understanding, when I sign this, it's a legally binding contract. So if I don't agree with that, I mean, you're right, maybe I am. I don't care what the board said, it's what they agree to. If we don't agree with the timeline, I don't agree with the timeline. And for you to say I have to sign this, I don't have to sign.
So Gina, the main focus of this document is really for the application itself. So make sure that you guys are following the rules, which is we're talking about the applicants outside of the committee. You do not bring any personal information. And you don't Google anyone, that's fine. That's really the focus of this.
I absolutely understand all of that, but this is a legally binding contract. And if I sign this, it says that I am aware and understand and agree with. That's not true.
So you can do exactly like what Raquel indicated, that you can write on the side that you don't agree with the timeline.
Oh,
That's not going to prevent you from being on the committee, it's not going to prevent you from screening the application. As long as you're able to treat all applicants the same and don't bring any additional information, then it's gonna be fine.
Dr. Sheila Rose.
I'm sorry to create more work for you, Yuri, but could I then have mine back? And are there any other folks who also would like theirs back?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Chair, Professor Ernesto, please.
Yeah.
If I may make a suggestion for your, could we collect these at the end? So sounds like it's just like a procedure thing. Could we collect these at the end once we talk through the agenda and then we can formally collect them, or do you have to collect them right?
I have to collect.
Yeah. But we're not talking about applicants that would be confidentiality. So can we just get through the end of the meeting and then have them?
No, actually, I have to get on before. So I was like at the beginning of the meeting.
So then would, by virtue of that, then wouldn't the audience have to get one, sign one too, because they're here? We're not talking about anything confidential, I'm just trying to make sense of why you need these right now, that's all.
Oh, this is always performed at the beginning of every meeting to ensure the confidentiality piece, so we follow it. Okay, so we follow it, even though you're not really discussing anything about the applicant right now, it's like.
I have a question about that. Is that a policy, Yuri?
It's a process.
Okay, well, can we request to have it at the end? Because if it's not a policy, I'm in agreement with Ernesto. I think, you know, there's some conversation needs to be had, and since we're not doing anything confidential, thank you. Because we're not doing anything confidential, can't we just?
Well, it's not gonna talk about the guidelines and all the other stuff, so that's part of the list too, so you do have to have that.
What about the audience?
If they met into a board front meeting, they're present.
So we can't request to ask it at, I'm requesting if we could have it at collective meeting.
No, I have to have it at the beginning. I have.
And I'm gonna fight you here.
Oh, that's, do they have some more? Sorry. No, sure, I'm just getting back to the more. That's fine as well, I guess. So since I am walking back, I guess.
So as Yuri verifies that all, filled, then we'll wait for that to continue.
Right.
So while we wait, if you haven't already, you can help yourself to some water for cafe.
Thank you.
So we can come back to order, then confirm that we have all of the confidentiality forms signed. So that was our information of item A and B done. We'll next move on to item number C, which is review search committee responsibilities, AGB.
Everyone got that document? I'm gonna pull that up. Which one?
Yeah. Okay, the committee, why don't we start with the college and university search committee guidance? Guidance.
Make them a little bit bigger. And can the person that's online see it? No, we're not.
Oh, oh, okay. Okay. So we learned at the last meeting that several people in the room, this is their first time serving on search committee that works with the search firm. And we wanted to make sure that we address that to set the standards for how you would work with an external partner. And that's who we are. We're your partner in this search. We are here to help to recruit a national pool of candidates for this opportunity to lead PCC. So we wanted to make sure you understood our role and how and what you should expect us. And we also want to make sure that you know what we expect from you. And last time our meeting it did have a hostile undertone. And so we want to make sure that, you know, we're your partner. And we're not here to be in contention with you. We're here to serve together, because who is at the center of this work that we're doing? It's the students. We want to help you find the best leader for PCC today and tomorrow. And we have to do that, and we have to come together. So we share this document to make sure you understood our role and make sure that you understand our expectations for how we're being treated as well and spoken to. So that's one thing. And we do this because this is a great professional development opportunity for those of you who are doing this type of work for the first time, because it's a way that you can also engage your own professional development and see what's expected as you move up the ladder in your career, and you can see how professionals and leaders are recruited, how they're treated, how they work with the search firm. You will not be surprised to know that I run into many people that are applying for positions that are in leadership roles and have never worked with a search firm. And so you're getting an opportunity to have this under your belt.
And so we're hoping that you will use this as a tool, and it's something that you can lean on when you think about, your own professional career trajectory.
You want to add anything else, Nancy?
No, I think that's quite good. I don't know if we have time for or opportunity for any inquiries as a result.
As an opening, again, one of the things is that, as I mentioned to Wayne earlier, as a committee, we're open in case there are any questions or comments on anything as they're presenting, then the next item is ready to be, just raise your hand to be recognized and be able to take them on. But if not, then be ready to move on to the next item.
The next item is search committee responsibilities. Once again, in response to what we heard about, this being a new opportunity for several people in the room. And this can also serve as a reminder for those of you who are seasoned and have served on many search committees before for a leadership position. And we just wanted to outline, what it is that the committee chair does. So what you should be asking of your chair. And, no, I said committee responsibilities.
Now we got.
They can make that a little bigger. So this outlines, once again, that, we work with you to develop a position profile, the attributes, challenges, and opportunities. And that is helpful for us as we discuss this wonderful opportunity with potential candidates, which we have been doing. So we wanted you to know what you can expect from your chair. And that chair, your chair is recognized, an effective leader who is knowledgeable about the university or the institution and can adjourn the meetings. The chair should demonstrate a high level of skills of maintaining the committee's focus on the meeting agenda and possess leadership qualities that include the following: impartiality, diplomacy, and inspiration. You did vote and elect your chair, so I'm hoping that you saw those qualities. I'm sure you did. And your chair is an advocate and models open and inclusive and cooperative, fair, and fully professional search committee meetings. Chair also serves as a role model, committed to the search, and encourages members to fulfill their search responsibilities. Along with the board leadership, the chair is authorized to speak about the stages of the process, not the content, not disclosing anything about anybody in the candidate pool, even if the person that is applying is in the next door to your office. And you want to maintain the confidentiality. Search committee commitments. Along with volunteering to be on this committee, and it is a volunteer opportunity, and I hope that all of you did volunteer willingly and openly. So you serve as an ambassador of the college, university, and an advocate of the search process by promoting and maintaining its integrity. Direct inquiries about the search to AGB consultants. You direct any questions to us. Apply ethical decision-making throughout the process. Contribute to the development of candidate assessment form that is in strict alignment with the position profile. Contribute to the development of semifinalist interview questions where appropriate, in strict alignment with the profile. We know that you have 2 separate committees that do that. Contribute in every way possible to an open, inclusive, fair, and cooperative and fully professional search process, and place the best interests of the college or university ahead of all special and personal interests. Maintain complete confidentiality about candidate information and discussions during and after the search has concluded. That means anything that is confidential now is confidential in perpetuity. This requirement exists while the search committee is active and at any and all times thereafter. It continues in perpetuity. Failure to comply with this requirement may result in removal from the committee. You are to review, those of you at certain parts of this process, review all applications impartially without bias. And in evaluating candidates, the committee members will use a common sense and good judgment to narrow the candidate pool to those individuals with the experiences, qualities needed to serve the best interests of the institution now and in the future, rather than the interests of any respective group. Regular and punctual attendance at all meetings and interviews. Selected meetings may be attended by video conference or phone if necessary. Fully participate in all committee deliberations and decision-making, and participate in finalist visits to the campus and such transition efforts that may be required. And then there's a list of important reminders that just reemphasizes some of the things I talked about in the engaging with fellow committee members and consultants. And so this really does outline a partnership. And so we're hoping that for those of you that are new to this, this is some good guidance, and for those of you that have done this work before, it's a good reminder.
Okay.
Any questions about that? Candy?
I just had a quick question about the assessment forms and the semi-finalist interview questions. I recall at our last session, there was a lot of conversation about the job description, and I had left with the understanding that there was agreement that we would be using the job description to help with these pieces, and I'm wondering how that decision, or I'm wondering why that's different.
So the job description was and looked at in alignment with the position profile. And we looked at it and realized it is very much in alignment. And if you look at it, you would, so I'm saying, when you get a chance to look at the both together, you'll see a great deal of alignment with the position description and the profile. And that says something too. There's some of the same things and some of the same leadership qualities that you have always needed, you still need, and you're sticking to that. And this institution knows what it needs in the next year, especially when it comes to characteristics. And it's not uncommon for a position description to be on the website, but the profile is what goes out, and there's a link to the position description and the profile. So most candidates, though, really do rely on the profile because it does give them more, and some of those nuances that aren't more tactical that are in the job description when we talk about attributes, you know, values and things like that. So both of them are aligned. And so that's, thank you for the question, because we did look at that and saw a great deal of alignment there.
Again, well, go with James and go back to Candace, please.
He gets his steps in.
Pointing hands.
Okay.
Just had a question, were we supposed to receive this on January 9th?
You were, so we just found out that it didn't go out to you. So we approved, we sent it on the timeline. It says it will be sent out January 9th. We made sure it was in the hands of the chair and her assistant, but there seems to have been some kind of a communication breakdown. We just pulled up the email and we found that it did not come to the committee. So we just learned that, and in alignment with what I just talked about, our rules for engagement and communication. Okay, we're your partner. So we will figure out a way to address that, but we just learned that today. So in alignment with that, we can't give you any answers about what's gonna have to happen next, because we know that there needs to be something correctly done. So that is something that I just want to say right here, right now. And so in line with what we just agreed to about demeanor, I just wanted you to know, we just looked about that.
Thank you. Anything else? Back to Candace.
I was just gonna say I was appreciative of the response, sharing that both the profile and the job description are very similar. So I want to thank you for that clarity. I was wondering though, in a desire, since there's gonna be some corrective action taken, based on the fact that we hadn't received the one on the ninth, which you just shared, you all understand that there's some piece that needs to happen. But being considerate of the feedback in the last session, I'm wondering if there is a compromise, which is that the candidate assessment forms and I'm going to request a compromise and that the candidate assessment forms and semifinal interview questions are in strict alignment with both the position profiles and the job descriptions, and that be documented or clearly articulated in the search criteria, this document.
So that you're absolutely right, Candace, the questions and the rubric for the candidate assessment form come from the profile, which we all call the North Star. Because if you start developing questions or developing the rubric before you have, after you have looked at the candidate materials, unconscious bias will be in there.
Sure.
So that's why we wanted you to have done that work before. And the candidate interview committee is the committee that will get the questions, not this full committee. So if you see in the timeline, you see that break happen, and then the committee, because they were submitted to submit their top 8, you don't want to give a committee questions while they're rating candidates, because you want to avoid unconscious bias. And so that's why that 4-day window is there. And that we have found in our hundreds of searches that when volunteers come to this, that's why we put a timeline out. So you can say, this is too much for me on my plate, I can't do this. And then that way you can decide whether or not you want to remain on the committee. But there's gonna be some work done, and there's no perfect time of the year. So we just want to honor what you said here about the timeline. But there is a personal choice too. So we just want to honor that, but you want to get the best person, you want to get the best candidate for this leadership opportunity, and you don't want to lose out, because timeline is inconsistent.
One thing if I may, just for the clarification, Dave, what was asked though is that, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Candice, I want to make sure we address it properly. It's not so much because everything you've spoken is true, but that when in modifying the timeline or the document, that it not only reads, because one of the things that you mentioned earlier, that it's strict aligned with the profile. I think when you mentioned that strict aligned with profile and job description, simply add that component.
Okay.
Because, right, I think that's.
Make that clear. Okay, so we need to state that we did that.
Yeah.
Thank you, okay.
We have a hand over here. And
Are you speaking directly to the same topic of the, profile aligning with the rubric?
I just have a question about the rubric itself. I think that's done it. That's better.
Just to clarify, I know the form says that it's been approved. I'm just wondering, does that mean that further edits cannot be made to this form? Like, is this the final form?
So if I may, I know just again, back to point of order, one of the things is that is gonna be the actual rubric, one of our follow-up agenda items, and we are gonna talk about that specifically. So again, right now, still, I know it came up because of it's mentioned in the actual responsibilities, but we will get to that one to its soul. If that's being discussed, we will be. At least that's my hope. With another on the responsibilities.
Yeah, I can wait
Yeah.
if we're going to be discussing that specifically.
Yeah, it's one of the agenda items, so I'm assuming that's exactly what we're discussing.
Okay.
And anybody else on the responsibilities?
Just a quick.
Yeah, Ken.
Since it's a Brown Act meeting, do I need to make a motion to edit the document to include the job description? So first, I guess, point of order. Do I need to make a motion to edit the document to include the job description?
This is where it does get, as I mentioned to you earlier, the fact that we are now officially a Brown Act, yes, and this is why I made sure to bring my awesome Robert's Rules of Order. That is what now governs our meeting structure. As much as we want it to be this conversation, because we're officially a Brown Act, we are bound by this, so yes, if there's an official change or recommendation that has been acknowledged to make it more formal, yes, you'd have to make a motion, seconded, and then, we can do a vote, and if it's not unanimous consent, then we can do a roll call vote.
So I make a motion to edit bullet points 4 and 5 to include, after in a strict alignment with the position profile, to include the words and position job description.
Second.
So I would do that. So again, this is the document that we're all in right now, which is the research, again, starting committee chair responsibilities, but the search committee commitments and items number 4 and 5, where it fully reads contribute to development of a candidate assessment form that is in strict alignment with the position profile. The motion is to add, what was the wording, Candice?
And job.
And job descriptions.
I second it.
So motion is made by Candice, seconded by Gina. Is there opposition to approving this by unanimous consent?
I'm sorry, may I just ask a question? I thought I heard that there was also an amendment, similar amendment to number 5.
Yes.
And,
same one.
okay, so that is part of the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
The bullet points 4 and 5.
Thank you.
Any, so hearing none, this is now approved by a unanimous consent, so we can move on to the next topic. Oh, hold on, we got a,
Wait, can I just request a personal point of privilege?
say again?
Can I request a personal point of privilege?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. That's what I.
May I just ask, I just new to this type of procedure, so if I leave the room, do I need to
It
ask for
gets,
that?
because we're part of it, it's one of the things where we can, continue, we have to wait, so yes.
Gotcha.
So this is part of, yeah, this is what I was mentioning to Kim early on, now that we're officially a Brown Act, there's certain stipulations that are in place. And while different, it is something we do have to, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's the first time I'm familiar with that. Not. Thank you.
Everything.
Does that indicate that we have to wait for?
Correct.
Return?
Yeah, that's why we're just staring at it.
So if anybody else needs to go,
That's
that's
what
what I'm.
So, again, this is where. On it? Yeah, what is, the meeting is being recorded, so again, the question is that exactly whether or not we're waiting, is my understanding that we do. But obviously, some of you have been doing at this level a little bit more than I have, so Emmanuel, you mentioning that we don't have to wait? Oh, I like it. It's up to the chair. It's up to the chair. Yeah, la pegada. Say, oh, I have multiple folks that just something like that. But thank you. Yeah. And Yep, no shares. Like 10 years or 5 years. Yes. Like, it's a song. So, by virtue of it. I'm excited to get. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Well, first, it was like. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I'm inspired. It's hard. Although it's not. Yeah. I've been thinking about that. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I know. Make up back over. So.
Yeah. Well, this is what we wanted to do is a process. So it's not quite the charge, so we can respond to any inquiries you have on the charge came from the board. And we can talk about the elements that comprise this charge, but we just want to give you a quick update on and remind you perhaps of what we have been asked to do and what we have done. Haven't forgotten, yes. Haven't forgotten. So, outreach. We opened this search, launched it, placed advertisements for the launch.
Yes.
November 27th. And during that time, in order to advance who you are, what Pasadena City College is and means to the community, to do that successfully. We did place advertisements that were approved. And I'll give you the list of where we placed paid advertisements and advertisements that did not have a cost associated. They were all online. We have found that when we like print advertisements often, especially something called the Chronicle of Higher Education, which you may be familiar with, that is very, very costly, and we chose not to do that. But
Sorry, for the word, I just wanna make sure, are you moving on from the charge to the next, that way I need to just announce it? Because it looks like it's still on the charge, which is the,
process.
yeah, so,
And I will, and since I keep in charge, it's not there.
yeah, I just wanna make sure, yeah, because we're still on that, so before we move on to item D, which is update on the recruitment process. I just wanna make sure there weren't any more comments on item C, so yeah, because you were still on the last document, with the C. The charter one, but yeah, that one this week.
Okay.
So that's it, so. Yeah, so we have a question. That's what I wanted to make.
Sorry.
No worries.
The question being that if we're going to review the timeline and abide by the timeline, my concern then is if, as committee members, we were not able to complete our responsibility based on the timeline because we didn't receive the information on those days. At what point, would that be part of the charge, or I just want to make sure that that's going to be addressed? And if we need to modify, we modify, since that's part of our charge.
So based on what we just learned here today, we can adjust, give you a week to read the candidate assessment form and offer any edits, and that will not require any adjustment to the timeline. The only thing will be adjusted is when we get access to the pool. So, you want to be diligent about that so that we can give you access to the pool, because, you really want to give yourself as much time and give the candidate materials grace and read them all and not rush them through. And I always recommend that you put some time on your calendar, protect some time on your calendar for reading applications.
Just to confirm,
The charge.
okay, I'm just curious to know,
This is what you've been invited to do by your board president. This is the invitation to serve on this committee and what you're being asked to do and the why of why you're.
I understand what it is, but there's a revision date listed.
Oh,
and
yes.
there's no document.
Well, the chair, who was the author of this document, you got one document like this early on, a sample, and she looked at it and made some revisions, and that's why she's giving it to you again. But this document was circulated at the first meeting.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to do is locate it online, be a Word doc, and it's not published.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if, I'm trying to find an old document.
Well, I don't need the source for that.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Policy was.
Yeah.
Or if it's even a policy.
It's not a policy. It's just, it's a formal invitation for you to serve in this role. And it's basically to help people understand the why. It's a formal invitation.
And it's typical to, a search at this level, that's a committee receive a charge. Sometimes it's included on the website, search sites, sometimes perhaps not.
But it's a way for you to kind of know, sort of on a high level before we get to the rules and all that. So if you were invited and you would say, well, I'm not sure if I have time to do this. You could then start to kind of examine and self-assess if you want to take on this task.
I have a question.
Please correct me if this would go under item D instead, but on the timeline, it says that after the candidate's assessment form is finalized, we'll be given access to the HP search site. Now that we have one week to make revisions to the form, will we be getting access after 1 week?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's
so-
one less. week
Yeah.
to review.
Precisely, but yeah, that is a timeline, but yes, to your question.
But once you get access, you will see that, the number of applications isn't so substantial right now that, and so, we have the time to do that and make that adjustment. And so we're happy to do that because We just found out today that you didn't get the form.
Yes. A question, Avery?
So for the charge to search committee form, it has board president, Pasadena City College at the bottom, and then there's a date, so this seems as if we have just signed, are we signing this?
Oh,
Or is the board president signing this, since she was the author? and
From my understanding, that, I'm not sure about a second, but it sounds like what Kim just mentioned, that the board president already authorized it and modified the other one. So that's what the
You
signature,
don't have to sign it. It's just, like I said, it's an invitation to kind of, to show you what you're signing up for.
Okay, so with no signature?
No, you don't have, no. It's a formality. It's a formality to say, this is broadly the work that you're gonna be asked to do. Should you decide to take on this task.
Okay.
Now, the confidentiality agreement, that's where you have to sign to.
any other comments on the charge? Moving forward. Thank you. Now.
Good question. Thank you, Tina. Okay, well, I don't need to start over, but I would like to tell you where the leadership advertisement or profile was placed. It was placed in the American Conference of Academic Deans, with the Chronicle, Higher Education Online, Community College Daily, Diverse Issues in Higher Education, Hispanic Outlook on Education, Inside Higher Education, the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, LinkedIn, the Professional Diversity Network, Asian Career Network, the Tribal College Journal, and Women in Higher Education. Those were the placements that we believe would be worthy of payment and making certain it reached a very broad audience. We also were able to identify at least one important placement that did not have associated costs, and that's with what's called the LGBTQ leaders in higher ed. It's on their website. We, of course, used LinkedIn, posted on our AGB Search's own website, and certainly was on yours, which was established. There is a superintendent president search page on your website. Contacts. Typically, we work with a lot of associations across the country, sometimes internationally. I am not going to read the entire list of them. Thank you, John. Gave good advice because there are about 30 plus of them across the country and regionally as well. It is important for you to know that we approach the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges and the Community College League of California. And those seem to be two additional very important sites for us. When we contact these organizations and associations, we do both leadership and membership when it's available. We also, in addition, we're also able to be in touch with all of the presidents and chancellors of the higher education institutions in California, executive vice presidents, chief academic officers, chief student affairs officers, directors of branch campuses, and all the campuses at all of the associates colleges and baccalaureate associates colleges. So all of these, all of the leadership there were, all of them were informed of this very important search, and we did receive some feedback from them as well. We find that if we add it all up, we probably did direct outreach to about 2,500 individuals, and mailing was something that we sometimes call blast. That is significant for us, but of course we do a lot of follow-up, a lot of phone calling, a lot of shoulder tapping, a lot of talking to our own colleagues at AGB Search about individuals who may have an interest in assuming this leadership, relocating. But we've done a lot of talking. Now, it was mentioned that we will continue to accept applications. There is a hard deadline of February 12th, I think. So you have the opportunity, or you will have the opportunity to look at the applications, to review them, to make some assessment. And now it's almost called a rolling kind of activity. You'll be able to get a large number of them done. And then as they continue to come in, you will have access to look at them one at a time. So you don't have to wait to see the whole group on February 12th. So we hope that will be helpful. You may be interested in knowing that we had a lot of nominations, which is good. We invite nominations, perhaps not as vigorously as we do applications, but the nominations were significant. And they came from not only our contacts, but we respected what we saw on the surveys that we were able to do. Some people did make recommendations on individuals who should be invited to take a look at this, at the superintendency presidency. Yeah, it looks like almost 42 people actually made these nominations, and that's pretty high for us. Do you have any questions on where we are in the search process?
No question, Dennis?
Not on the search process, I think that was really great, so information, I wonder how we can then read that into the record, like those 30, so I don't know, point of order, there are documents that she's reading that include all the places that she's posted and all of, not the names or anything, but just some of the data points about at least where the job was posted. How would we then see all 30 how would we get that into the record of this
Of
meeting?
course, with that, it should be, in my logical are pretty simple, being that we're taking minutes, it was to be provided to, to be added to the minutes that we posted. Again, we are a Brown Act open minutes, so they will be added to the board docs later on, so that'd be one of the documents that can be added to it.
Thank you.
And that was submitted to HR because it is a cost associated with it. It had to be approved by the institution for those publications to be to receive the funds for the advertising.
Well, let's talk about when you do have access to what is called the share file with AG Research, where you will see these applicants and all of their materials. There you will be, when you do have the password for access, you will open that site and you will see two big folders. One larger than the other because it will include all of the applicants' materials. The applicants' materials one at a time, and they are listed in the order that the applications actually were received. So you will see that person's cover letter, that person's resume or vita, and the references that that person will choose to use, listed references, if in fact the individual is advanced to a point that references need to be pulled. As consultants, we call these references, we don't assign them to anyone else in the firm, any associate or support person, we do it personally. With references, you should know also that there are two levels of background checking for our individual. The semifinalists must permit us in writing to do the first level, which includes a LexisNexis review. It also includes our own internet review on search engine, Google or otherwise. And it also gives them permission to, gives us permission to look at social media. For all of you who are interested, I know that all of you are very adept at social media, but in the background, the firms that do background checks now have become very sophisticated about it, extremely sophisticated. So even if you post something that you think is kind of nice, but it's not your own writing, it's going to be shown. And sometimes things are flagged. They're called flags. Why are they flagged? They could be flagged because of vulgar language used, or posting someone else's vulgar language. Could be posted for prejudicial statements, thing that seems to reflect a bigotry. Could be posted for, we just had one recently, very interesting. A person, very capable person, was flagged for nudity. Well, that was kind of interesting. Why is that? So we looked and we saw a photo, not of her, not of a nude individual, but of one of those cute floats in the swimming pool. That happened to be a woman dressed, but it was a float. So the system picked that up as nudity. So we are careful about that too. We be very careful to make certain no one is misrepresented. So, and then the second level, as the person moves into the final stage, you know about that kind of background check. It includes driving records, jury appearances, any legal cases that are still open, confirms academic credentials that are claimed. All that kind of thing. Did I miss something? Oh, credit. That's pretty important. And again, so that means it's important for that individual to be absolutely candid and upfront. And we usually ask people, is there anything that you know an individual will find that you should tell us about before we see it? And we could give you lots of stories about that, but we encourage our candidates to be very upfront, because sometimes it's purely innocent that an individual may be flagged or something like that. Okay, those are the reference checking. So back to the logon. So you'll see all of that about the candidates, three big documents, and then you'll also see your own, another folder, and it's just going to be committee materials. So if you need to be reminded of what your advertisement looks like, it'll be there. So it's just a support. I should tell you that we were requested to redact our candidate materials. So you will look at a resume and there will not be a name, nor address. That's redaction. I will give my view on redaction, but it is there. You won't see names, you'll see everything else. Okay.
I'm just worried about, and worried is too strong of a word, but if there's how will I know if I have a conflict with somebody I'm looking at, if the materials are redacted? I mean,
That's an interesting
right?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, but it was requested for us to do that, so we did it, but that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't either.
Wait, is that a hand or is this? No. So Emmanuel and then John?
I believe someone asked that question at the beginning of this process. So if you get to the interviews, you know someone, that's when you have to take it. But there shouldn't be any reason why.
Okay, I think
Yeah, John?
That's true. But you won't know right away.
no.
Don't be assigned numbers, how are we gonna?
Oh, all of the applications are numbered, and again, the order that they were received.
Corey?
I just want to clarify one thing. You said we're gonna see the references at this point as well.
You won't see reference notes, you will see the list of names of individuals who have been selected to give reference.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. By the way, if you look at that chart, sorry, you go back to that, just look at your materials. Don't forget that if you decide that you leave this room and decide, well, this is so compelling, I'm going to apply. Make certain you remove yourself from this committee.
Number 3. Oh, the chocolate. And you have to do it before you take actions to the candidate. And you would have to leave this committee before you get access to the candidate.
And one other thing, I hope you remember, it's hard to remember, but it's a footnote. You will receive a password. It is a common password. It's something that belongs to you. Common password, but it's only for you.
Don't give it to anyone else. And if you see that you could change the password, don't do it because it'll shut everyone else out.
Marilyn?
It's been stated by you folks that you expect us to get quite a few last minute applications due to the fact of the confidentiality on the applicant. If for some reason you see an overwhelming number of applications come in at the last moment, will that affect this timeline at all? Or because as classified employees, we can only do it while we're at work. We don't have the option of doing it. So it has to be during our working hours. This,
I'm sorry, carry on.
so,
Could we get, with EEO, I know that's part of our access, the equal access, is that a true statement as far as the availability of when they're able to access it?
so that's correct for all classified. I'm employing that manager, they can only screen during their workshops. There's Monday through Friday, when I visit with
Thank you. And we had a comment over here. I was just going.
We didn't answer. Yeah.
One over here. That's true, that didn't anticipate getting as many more applications, than what we've already had.
The only thing redacted is the name.
Phone number.
Hi. It's personal identified with the mayor.
So that means you might decide, well, I'm going to look at this person's, where this person received her baccalaureate degree, and you will see something that may be listed as an HBCU, and you'll make an assumption. Is that right? Is that your concern?
No, a current employee may be applying, stating what their current position is at his college, then that may pass. I know.
So thank you, then I have, 5 folks coming in, we got Gina first, then Matt, Ernesto, James, and Avery.
I know you said that you don't anticipate getting, too many applications after the fact, but I do want to remember what the advisor of student life said about the students. This is gonna be in, during finals, and I think we need to make some sort of adjustment,
We did make an adjustment. We added a week.
Okay, so if things come in
Yeah,
late,
we added a week based on the last discussion, so we do have to move the process along. So that's when I said it is important for people, this is volunteer opportunities. And if you don't have time, we understand that. But, we can't, everyone's busy, so we have to be mindful that if students are gonna be asked to be on the committee, that, there's students that are asked and they know up front. And so we really try to account for that. I'm not being insensitive because we all have to move forward though. So I don't know what you would say about the candidate pool if we went into the summer and no one's applied because all the good people have taken precedence.
I'm concerned about the students and bottom line.
So maybe students shouldn't be tasked with doing the same amount of work.
But here's the thing, that's not how it works. We make adjustments for them. So we may have to agree to disagree on that, but, again, we need to hear what people are saying, the public comment, what our students are saying, and not just insensitively go off past that as if they can just make adjustments to their school schedules. That's final, that's not how it works here.
We added, who was next?
Thank you, Gina, Matt.
And,
Where's the adjustment?
Yeah,
we added a week, the last time I had only a few days.
Where is it?
The former timeline had a few days after the, February 12th, and we added a week,
Go to February 19th.
February 20th.
Okay, thanks.
Going along the same lines of the timeline, what Marilyn said, because there's classified employees being screened during the working hours. From February 12th to February 20th, it's also a holiday weekend in between that, so that eliminates 4 days of screening out of that time, so effectively, there's 1, 2, 3 days to screen.
So you're getting access as soon as the candidate form is approved, and so you'll have Only after February 12th would you have to be worried about that. I don't anticipate you getting a lot more applications based on the number of searches that I've done. But, you know, if something remarkable happens, I guess we definitely have to adjust for that. Something remarkable happens, we will.
Thank you. Ernesto, then James and Avery.
I'm gonna pass.
I just really appreciate it, the willingness to be flexible on that, especially for our students. As classified senate president, I just need to put out again, as everybody's mentioned already, that our folks really are limited to on-clock time, and they also have to balance all their other responsibilities. I don't know that it's appropriate to say that if it's a challenge to them, that maybe classified shouldn't be involved, or suggest that maybe students shouldn't be involved. But instead, I do appreciate on the other end where we said that we'll just be flexible then, if that's the case, and we get an influx, that we might be able to extend that deadline even further. To give us ample time to get through it and to not put everybody under the gun for that. And hopefully it doesn't kind of throw the rest of the timeline into, out of whack, because as it is, we're playing pretty fast and loose with this timeline. Just kind of gets to change arbitrarily so far.
Well, it won't, we've been asked by candidates when the interviews would happen. So candidates know that there's gonna be semifinals interviews at the end of February. Because they also have to map out their time. And then they wanna know when finalist interviews might be happening. So we've been communicating with the candidates, because that's one of the first questions they ask is, can you tell me about the process? When things are gonna take place? When is there expected, maybe anticipated hiring date, that kind of thing? So that is a factor in people's decision to get in the search or not as well.
Avery, and then Diaz.
So I have two questions. One of them first being something that Emmanuel Gomez had brought up about the interview committee, about whether we know this person from any pre-existing thing. We have to exit the interview committee because we already know them. Is it true that someone who is currently like working at BCC can apply for this position for superintendent? Right, that's true. So if I was in the interview committee and as somebody who contacted the administration a lot as student trustee, I knew this person, that means I would have to interview or exit the interview committee?
Negative. For one of the biggest things is actually, and something where here we can clarify on that, Amariola.
Yeah, so let me make a correction here. You don't have to remove yourself if you know someone. You will only remove yourself if you're a family member that has applied. Or if you've written a letter of recommendation for any of the applicants. So you will know applicants, just as long as you can treat them the same as you would any other applicants, that you don't have to remove yourself.
And then my next thing is that, I understand that, all the students here with me, this is a volunteer option and this is something that we choose to do, but as somebody who, by a board bylaw, it says 5 student representatives, student trustee, and associate students. My position name is on there, and even though I'm happy to be participating in this thing, this is something that I have to do for my position, no matter what student trustee is being elected. This is something that I do have to do, and I want to devote as much time I can because I'm excited to be part of this process. But all I'm saying is that for some of the students on this board, they can choose not to do this, but for me, I do have to do this. And so if there's any possibility of leeway with the timeline, I would sincerely appreciate it. That's all I'm gonna say. And we understand how everything has to be dealt with and organized, but that's all I'm gonna say.
Good, thank you, Avery. Duly noted. And I think again, once the comments are done, with Diaz, we'll probably ask Janice to actually go through the timeline and see where and if the possibility. Diaz?
I have a little unique situation. I work the ground on campus and,
It's for the recorders. We need to make sure you have it.
I work the grounds of the campus. So I don't sit in an office. I don't have access to a computer as accessible as most people. Do I have to be here to do the screening? Can I be at home during my working hours, do that instead of being present here?
So, no, you don't get to work from home to review applications, so what you would need to do is discuss with any of your supervisor and ask them to give you a lot of time for you to do it here on campus during your regular work hours.
Any other comments?
Maybe that's something.
It just occurred to me, I think I heard, but maybe I heard incorrectly, that, that there might be late applications. As far as we understand it, we have a hard deadline of February 12th, so nothing after that. I know we're still having a concern about the timeline in general, but there will not be any applications accepted after the 12th.
But I think that's the conservative question, that's that it'd be late, but that'd be a lot of, applicants, last minute applicants submitted.
Yes, I think I heard that. All right.
Yeah, we have Bell and then, William.
I just want some clarification for the screening. Do we have to be on campus to do it, or are we not allowed to be at home to do it?
No, that was specific to classified staff, that, I think every other, constituent group is allowed to do it remote. Wayne?
Really quick, I just want to mention something really quick. In the beginning, you talked about how we're a team supposed to work together, and you just dismissed the students by saying that you don't maybe the students shouldn't be on it. So that how is that like causing any kind of relationship positive for any of us if you just dismissed us right now? I just want to address that.
That wasn't a secret. So, well, you know, if you feel that way, I accept your perception, but what I'm trying to impart to you is that we do have to move the process forward. And we can't have a process that goes on without any timelines, any markers. And so that's where I was really trying to emphasize. So you felt it as though it wasn't dismissal, it really wasn't. And for me, I was just trying to clarify the sense of urgency that we have with the work. And I really wanted to try to impart that to the room, that there is a sense of urgency, that we do stick to a timeline and a formal process. And that's why we moved it. We heard you the last time, we moved it and we added a week. And so we did actually take your advice and adjust the timeline based on what the students said last time. And I don't see that being acknowledged in this room.
If I may, on that note, as Ella will be our next speaker, then Ernesto is, well, yes, it was a week added. It was a week added during a holiday break where, again, certain folks are not allowed to read. And it just should be respected. And even one of the things on the timeline is the option to exclude all holidays during that week. So it is part of your own notes on your that President's Day weekend, my birthday, so nobody should be. It's so February 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Those were all academic calendar recognized holidays for the campus. And for our college, again, and that's why when we're discussing National Church academic calendar for different dates. And that's why, so we recognize that there's some difference, but it really, I know it's a week more, but it really, it's more like a couple of days. Just want to make sure that's clear, and as we continue again, Ella, and then Ernesto.
Oh, I just want to say, well, thank you, Wayne, for sharing that, because I think that's not just something that he feels in solidarity. And I do understand the urgency of the process, which is why there is a timeline, which is why we should follow things in an orderly manner to make sure that things will happen. But once again, when we come to a timeline issue, even though there isn't necessarily, there is not going to be a perfect time for everyone, but given that it's an institution and we have our academic calendar, there will be a time that is better for most people. And that would serve more of the purpose of the search, because we want the best people. And to get the best people, we want to have the time and energy and the devotion to read all the application, to read all the resumes, to make sure that we're really choosing a superintendent that will serve the students and the teacher and will serve the duty of the campus. And I do want to just say that I share the same feeling when you said, and I quote, that if you feel that this responsibility is too much for you, maybe students shouldn't be on this committee. And please let me finish, thank you. And I think that it does, even though you might not want to be dismissing us, it did come off to be that way. And I think there are feelings hurt because everyone is here, not only because we volunteer to be here, but also there are part of our, whether it's position description or job description, that wants someone from the group that we represent to be here. And we volunteer our time because we truly care about the process. So yes, students do have to be here and students shouldn't just be, well, if you can't make the time, don't be here. And I don't think that should apply to any other classified or faculty or management either.
I did not, I spoke in general for anyone, not just students. You could look at this an opportunity and say, am I able to do this? And so you are saying that I only use that in conjunction with the students, but today, and this is recorded, you heard me say that about this volunteer opportunity when I talked about the duties and responsibilities, when I talked about the charge. So I think that there's some selective sensitivity here. And guess what? We are individuals too. And we came to this process and we have not been treated with respect. We were met with open hostility. And I don't see anyone here today responding to that or even talking about how we were treated. So it has to be mutual. And I think we have to give each other grace because we are feeling like, you know, we're trying to do our best to partner and put a timeline out there and put information out there. And we're just hoping that you understand that we're really trying our best to make sure that this process works smoothly for everyone and that you really understand that we care about the time. We do searches all over the nation. We care about your time and your energy, the academic calendar, the pressures. Nobody does one thing at one time anymore. Everyone is doing, you know, multiple tasks at a time. And so, but we want you to also, there's sort of an arc of when candidates are getting presidencies, and we don't want your search to fall outside of that when all the good people have taken opportunities. And that's also something that you wouldn't know. We know that. So that's what we're trying to protect you and that to keep you in that process at the time when you get the best possible response to the opportunity.
Well, thank you for that. I understand that there is a sense of urgency and I understand that you have more expertise when it comes to managing timelines, but I do really think that I would genuinely really appreciate if there are flexibilities, because as Theo has mentioned, and as it states here, options include a holiday during that week. And so given that, was the whole scenario with students having to go to finals, and for example, our student trustee and our president here, they're actually required to sit on this search committee and also the interview ones. So then they are having finals during that time, and immediately after it is, on the academic calendar, it is holiday for the entire campus. So that really leaves minimal time to look through whoever that might apply last minute. And we really want to devote time and energy to make sure that it is the best person possible. And I understand that you want this timeline to move forward because there is urgency and we don't want to be outside of the arc. But would there be some kind of flexibility beyond that 2 to 3 days because there is a holiday during the week?
Thank you, and then we'll get to that point right now. I want to discuss the timeline in more detail. Ernesto?
That was actually gonna be my suggestion, if we were to talk about the timeline. I did want to make a comment though, because, my feeling in this, and you know, I want to follow the HEB search, college and university search guidelines that y'all shared. You know, I'm feeling a lot of hostility from this table today. I've not really spoken today. I wanted to be open sponge and, a lot of just number 5 offering views that the students did without any defensiveness or combativeness, just remind us. And I also want to know, because, Candy made a comment about this, you know, just entering the room today, Mr. James introduced himself and, you know, just want to know a little bit about us and just really different approach that I had today. And I'm here to just really get this process going, but also in that it meets our needs, right? You all said it meets our needs as a college, right? The 2 things that you just said that I want to highlight for everybody who didn't catch it was 2 things. Is one, we are relying on you for your expertise, right? We want to make sure that we pick the best of the best. But we also have to customize it for ourselves, right? Don't want someone who doesn't know PCC. You don't want someone that is gonna listen to us. The fact that you didn't look at the calendar and looked and see, hey, that timeline does not go, or based on what y'all shared with me in the last meeting, was that there's a couple of things that y'all need to look at, because we're also your clients as well in all this. Y'all didn't do that, right? So that's why, you know, you hear from our students. Our students are the most important thing. It's our mission statement. We're student centered. And so when you say things that come off dismissive, it's a little hard for us not to, you know, replicate the interview. Y'all don't need to answer that, I just wanna put that out there, that's how I'm feeling, it's a safe space, as our chair has mentioned. I wanna, either allow us to move into talking about this timeline and make proposed changes. So I don't know, I know it's on some hands, but Mr. Chair, if we can move forward to that, or if I need to make a motion or something. Okay, I will.
Yeah, I didn't see any other hand, that's why, that's how I was just looking this way.
I just wanted to apologize on behalf of the college, to Wayne, to Avery, to Belle, Tyrene, to Ella. You know, certainly we never want our students to enter into spaces and not feel that their voices are heard. And so I just wanted to acknowledge on behalf of the college that we hear your concerns and that we will do our best through this process to be as flexible as we can. I think to Ernesto's point, maybe let's move forward, get to the calendar, and then we can kind of get to some resolution to get us hopefully out here at 5 and be respectful of everybody's time.
Thank you, Candace. I think before we do that, we have one more on this, Big Gabby, then we'll have Janice walk us through the timeline.
I'll make this very quick, but as a community member and as an educator, I just want to echo what Candace just said, just to apologize to the students, because we're supposed to be examples for you all. As someone who's just been observing and taking information, I just want to put that publicly for everyone to hear, because at the end of the day, you know, we exist as an institution because of the students, so I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Yeah, you want to walk through the timeline?
I'm not giving the start, joining with Kim and Jim, but I do know that this timeline doesn't belong to us. We did try to present it and make certain that it made sense for everyone, respected everyone. We're not privy to all of the all of the days as the college may be closed, so I acknowledge that. We usually look at the academic calendar. So I would say that the best thing we can do is note your immediate concerns and anything that we can discuss with individuals who already approved this timeline. Okay. Anything that?
No, I did want to say that you definitely have to confer with your board president and your board, because they're on the timeline, as you can see as well. And so anything that we discuss here today is going to take into consideration your concerns. It's going to take into consideration, this is recorded, they'll know what your concerns are, but we also have to work with them as well, as a body that is going to be this person's boss.
Thank you. We're going to start off with Sheila and then Raquel.
So thank you, Kim. You did mention that the Board of Trustees are also on this timeline. So I wanted to look at the space on the timeline between January 25th, our current meeting, and February 12th. There's a box that says the Screening Application Reading Committee and the Board of Trustees will be reviewing candidate materials using a candidate assessment. And this is in conflict with board policy 2431, superintendent president search, which outlines who is screening versus who is interviewing. And on point 13 of board policy 2431, it indicates that the board is represented by their 7 community representatives, but nowhere does it say that the Board of Trustees themselves are reviewing the candidate materials. And it also says in this policy at the beginning that it must be changed by the Board of Trustees if this membership of the screening application and interview committees are not followed. So I'm just wondering if you have a response to that.
And if we can, I mean, I'm not sure it's possible, can you pull that policy up just to make sure folks are on the same page?
No, we don't have a response to that. The board made their interpretation of this, and so we were guided by the board's input, so we don't have a response to that.
Okay, then I would ask that we make a motion that this timeline be returned to the board, so that they can make a public vote to change it, which is required by the board policy.
Second.
May I make a second with the amendment? Hold on. Sorry, this is we practice quite a whole point of being a Brown Act. So one thing, just want to make it clear, we have a motion on the floor, use the microphone. Yeah.
So we have a motion on the floor from, Dr. Sheila Rose, and it is, to say that again?
I would move that we, ask the board to take the timeline back to a public board meeting in order to publicly change either the timeline and the inclusion of them as screening. Because it is in conflict with board policy 2431.
Did I hear a second?
Yes, second amendment.
Who's second?
Second with the amendment. Second with the, if I can propose it.
Yes.
What can I borrow the mic? Sorry.
What you said, with the understanding that the process stops until we go and have, or they have that public meeting. Do you want to repeat that whole motion?
And this.
Please do, because that is definitely something, one of the things that, before we continue with the point of order, sorry to put you on the spot, Arena, but again, it is being that, again, it's a big part of your role. On the agenda, it did state that and the stuff that we're discussing today, it's information items with possible action. Is, I know, again, one thing that we keep highlighting is that the timeline is, issue of the board, but being that this is, again, as a Brown Out committee with the possible action, would this warrant, fall under that? Yes. No, okay, as the chair proposal, that's actually keeping track of this, want to make sure we're up to understand that this is a possible action, document and meeting. Because they're not gonna know that, to be frank.
So I don't think that's for me to say.
Right, so I said, because I know you have to go to the meeting, but, and this is part of, was as a Brown Act committee, again, when, that's when they made the agenda. And they informed it as this, it was putting this stuff out to play. So again, as an information on the possible action, I say that because I know there's comments for, well, it's not per se, but when it's worded like this, it is. And, so again, so there is a motion on the floor. It is seconded with amendment, but I want to make sure that that part's clear, which is why in this. So there will be a point of discussion after the vote, but we have a motion.
Discuss before the vote.
Yes, so we have a motion, which is now, when you accept the modified version, is what I wanted to clarify.
Absolutely, yes, I thought it was understood that the process would have to stop until we reconcile the,
But being, that's the case, can you, make the full motion, please?
So I make a motion that the timeline be brought back to the Board of Trustees. And that until it has been addressed, the discrepancy between board policy 2040-31 and the screening individuals on the policy, that the process be stopped.
Thank you, so I have a motion and a second.
2431.
Discussion,
And then, Raquel.
Hi, good evening. I guess my discussion point would be, so that, I mean, I'm fine with sending this back to, you know, in regards to board policy 2431, but I just wanted to make a comment, like, I don't want to stall it. I mean, can we look at the dates and then fix the dates and then also send, you know what I'm saying?
we can, I think, it's just that if, once the motion is made in that context, and if approved, then no.
Oh, okay. I mean, I just, you know, who reads and screens the applications, I guess, for me, it was separate than fixing the dates. So like, I'd like to fix the dates today.
That, well, again, right, I can see why you're saying that, and it would be possible, but we can, again, the work is still continuing today as far as maybe modifying that.
That's-
However, even that would also have to go back to the board according to AGB, where because it's the board's timeline, then we could make the recommendations,
Correct.
yes?
Like, can we do both?
Yes,
So we do both, so we're not just saying, we stop right here and don't do anything else. I'd like, my discussion point is, can we also consider the dates and then and send it all back to the board?
understood, and that I believe we can.
That was what I was gonna bring up too, because I'm gonna go back to, the timeline has not been followed. And so, going back to the January 9th and the January 17th, this timeline in and of may be null and void because it hasn't been followed. So while I do appreciate, Professor Rose and Mr. Partita's comments, and I support them, I am in agreement that we should point out everything so that it's very clear on our motion, and if we vote, what is it with this timeline that needs to be corrected? And because it's multiple items, again, I'm not disputing, I'm saying, and A and B. That's how my accent, sorry.
Thank you. Dr. Lopez?
I think this is the area that I asked a question, and I'm trying to be as straightforward as possible. You keep talking about the urgency of this, I know that we need to get a president, I understand that, but why the urgency, the rush, we have to get it done, and the resistance to want to change some of these times? I'm just wondering where you got that charge from, that we have to get it done. I don't think that you came up with that, I think you may have been told that. I just want to know what is that about?
Well, as I said, this timeline has been approved by your board, and so we have to operate within the parameters of the approved timeline. That's our commitment to your board who hired us, and so we can't change it without the board changing it. We just have to live up to our end of the deal, and that's what we're trying to do, because this is the current timeline today. As far as the urgency, as I said, there's a lot of presidential searches going on right now. And people are getting, this is that part of that arc where, we're going into that space where people are being interviewed. So we're on the same track with other institutions. And so that's when, you start to see people taking jobs, or you might have people in your pool that you say, we want to invite be a semifinalist, and guess what they say? No, I already took a job. And so we don't want to have that happen overwhelmingly so much until you might end up putting yourself in the position of not getting the top candidates that are out there seeking an opportunity. So that's sort of the pattern that these things take across the academic year.
So just for my own clarity, what you're saying is that the reason why you're kind of sticking to this is because this is what you've been told it needs to be done.
It's been approved, yes.
James?
I think just going back to Raquel's point that was made about turning back the time, like taking another look at revising the timeline and updating it so that it accurately reflects everything that's going on. When AGB search continues to insist that it was board approved, the timeline board approval, we were there. But that then you have to stick to it, and that's why we have to stick to it, and that's why we have to stay on top of it, but then you're not sticking to it. And it's arbitrary, like when we didn't get the rubric. It just doesn't really seem fair that we, and even ultimately maybe our students even would have to be pressed into a corner on a tighter deadline, on a timeline that we don't agree with, on a timeline that we want multiple problems with. But AGB search doesn't have to stick to some of these same agreements. Like delivering us this timeline. And then I just am in big support of being able to go back to not scrapping the whole thing, but just making the amendments as necessary and having the flexibility to do.
Thank you for that. I think again, based off we have a motion, we have a second. Part of the discussion is, and this is where I will ask for assistance in clarifying, is if that motion is approved, then we would start to make recommended modifications before, after to move, or do we need to make those recommended modifications before we approve to go with this motion? I'm gonna go with my homie Raquel.
I think you need to change the wording Because the motion is exact to that wording, so if we're going to do anything in addition to that wording, then the motion needs to be restated here.
Yeah, or substitute.
Yeah, because her motion includes that it stops immediately,
And that's why. I
so
wanted
they
to-
might need to reword that.
So I would again go and this one, before we get back to Sheila, who was the original.
More of a point of clarification, since I made the motion that is, or an amendment that it stops. If I would change that and really focus on writing down a mock schedule, what that would look like, or created that, would that be able to continue on?
And that's exactly why, because the way it's understood is that if the motion is to stop, then it stops, but in reality, we want to continue the workshop today to ensure that, I think what you're trying to clarify and how it's gonna be worded, you're gonna get that jointly is, in reality, we want to recommend these changes to the Board of Trustees, and until that happens, then yes, some of this process would have to stop if I'm understanding correctly, but as far as this meeting today, we want to make those recommendations, and so we don't want it to stop just yet. We want to make updates reference to the timeline, as well as we already know we got the additional time frame, as Phil was mentioning earlier, to modify the candidate assessment form because we hadn't received it yet.
Okay, so let me withdraw my second with those comments, so that way Dr. Rose can consider that change.
So again, the second and move, so original motion.
Okay,
It's the mic from you.
are we doing it, or?
Yes, so that's why there's still in discussion. We're still in discussion, that's why.
Sorry.
So I have to just say one more thing, coming from a district that takes forever to hire, I just wanna let you know, like, it's frustrating when we pick somebody and they tell me that they've taken a job elsewhere. I just wanted to tell you that, because that happens over and over, and it's super disappointing. So I just wanted to reiterate that. That's not to say that this timeline shouldn't change. I just want to remind you that sometimes the really good candidates get snatched up right away, just letting you know.
So, while Sheila's thinking about it, Janice wants to make a comment, we're gonna take part of the discussion.
And just in case you're thinking, well, this individual, took another position, before we were able to respond, that's not the case. Individuals can be very committed and very interested in joining this community and still know that, well, I have to make progress and I have to move on. So don't think that, you would be second to anyone when we're worried about staying in some kind of, timeline, respectfully so, not urgent, but important. We want to hopefully get to a point that everyone is satisfied and the search is successful and it happens before the next academic year, well before.
Well, yeah, thank you, and before we get to the one, let's do another item for discussion.
Just a point of clarification, this timeline is suggested guidelines, or are all of these dates, other than the specific ones, hard dates?
The way it's been described, to our understanding, those are hard dates, which is why it's part of the conversation.
And that is, the reason why those doodle polls from Harmony kept going out to you all. These are the dates that surfaced as the most, the dates that were most of you were available. And that was the process that we committed to do with you the last time we met, that we doodle poll and make sure that we found dates that the majority of the committee could be known. So that's where these dates came from, by the way.
Thank you. So there's no
Further discussion on that, Dr. Sheila Rose, I'm sure will come to some wording as far as your amended motion.
Okay, so here's another attempt. I make a motion to send the presidential hiring timeline back to the Board of Trustees to be revised to reflect the changes that have already occurred in the timeline. To address the discrepancy in the composition of the screening committee outlined in the timeline versus board policy 2431, and to adopt proposed changes in the timeline from the screening committee.
You don't have to read that to me one time.
I wrote it.
You got that?
Yeah, I'll email it to you. I second.
Can you just repeat, say it again, repeat it?
Okay.
Sorry.
I make a motion to send the presidential hiring timeline back to the Board of Trustees to be revised to reflect the changes that have already occurred in the timeline, to address the discrepancy in the composition of the screening committee between the timeline and board policy 2431, and to adopt changes in the timeline proposed by the screening committee.
Can I add something? The timeline hasn't been changed. We agreed that because of what happened, we talked about that because of what happened today, and you learned that you did not get the candidate assessment form, we agreed that we would go back and ask to modify this to give another week, so it has not been changed. That's our recommendation. I just wanted to make that clear. We did not change it yet, but we were surprised that you didn't get it. And so we were recommending, we plan to recommend that a week be added so that you can read it.
Thank you.
So it sounds like then if that's the case, being that no timeline was modified, even though I perceived that it was. We can, leave that beginning component of your statement, the part is be modified on the amendment, because there's nothing that has actually been changed.
Okay,
So if you read your first part, I think that we.
so I said to reflect changes that have already occurred in the
Right, so
timeline.
there hasn't been changes occurred, is what she's saying, because they didn't actually make, even though she recommended, they haven't been made.
Okay,
So just everything after that, pretty much.
okay, but there was a very clear request that the motion reflect that the original timeline was not on.
Thank you. Yes, so that's what it's being.
So instead of
so-
to reflect changes that have already occurred, to reflect missed actions according to the original timeline?
I think that's much more accurate. Yeah, no changes are actually.
That's more. Okay, thank
So
you.
with that modified, I think again, go back to the original seconder again, but then that's partida. Second, so any further discussion? So again, one of the things is, as I have to ask, is anybody opposed to approving by unanimous consent? Me, okay, cool. So we're gonna do a roll call vote, Brennan?
And you say what a vote, which vote is what?
Okay, so vote aye is in agreement, a vote nay is in not.
Avery Bradley.
Aye.
Belafontaine, no. Candelario Diaz,
Aye.
Candace Jones,
Aye.
Tito Altamirano,
Aye.
Carol Calantra,
Aye.
Cory Rojo,
Aye.
Diane, Elena Lee, Ella Tang, Emmanuel Gomez, Ernesto Barriga,
Aye.
Gabriela Perez,
Aye.
Gina Lopez,
Aye.
Irene Wong,
Aye.
James Bull.
Aye.
John Quintanilla.
No.
Julia McCallum,
Nay.
Marilyn Johnson,
Aye.
Matt Kamara,
Aye.
Melissa Anderson,
Aye.
Moshe Mohamedi,
Aye.
Raquel Torres Rotana,
Aye.
Sheila Rose,
Aye.
Sylvia Talar,
Aye.
Tracy Saxon,
Aye.
and Wayne Schroeder.
Aye.
So 2 nays, 1 absent, and the remainder are ayes.
Thank you, the motion passes. So what we'll do now is, based off of that motion, is as a committee, with whatever time remains, all of it, but look at the timeline and make those recommended edits, both to the dates themselves, but also some of the language that was brought forward regarding the discrepancies between what exists in the timeline and board policy 2431. And
So since I'm not privy to the BCC academic calendar, can somebody tell us what the holidays are?
It's public on the homepage.
Well, I know,
It-
but I
no.
have to look it up.
we have a copy in our original documents, it was original, for those who brought it, I did not. It was a copy in there, but one is going in there.
Check it out.
So with that, to help move this along, I'm gonna see whether or not, it's gonna happen on you, whether we, go through the content, make those, recommended edits.
Okay, as we started out, this is, January 9th, we're supposed to have gotten that, the candidate assessment form, and we did. So, that was, the first point that we tried to address today. And, we recommended adding a week, because we lost a week. Essentially, we looked at the document and offered edits to it. We were assuming that, you were reading it, and we actually followed up to say, we haven't heard anything, it's 17th, what's going on? So now we know why. I thought that was uncharacteristic of the committee. Anyway. So I was wondering what happened, so now the mystery is solved. So, so we were recommending giving you any thoughts on that?
I was just gonna say, work members should be aware, that
Should be aware.
this being an issue. So it not sent by January.
Oh, there was an email that said you didn't get it?
No, what I'm saying, these documents that we are, receiving,
Mm-hmm.
sent out Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah. That, same thing now. More is how. So they should be aware.
No, I think they assumed that you had gotten it too. They assumed that the document had gone out at the 8th.
I don't think so, because they're copying each email, which is exactly how
Okay, I don't know, but, okay, I don't know, but I just wanted to try to take down your recommendations on this document, so.
Just that we have minutes next week that reflect whatever happened, as well as the previous meeting.
Okay, once again, I don't have control over that.
Yeah, no, we'll be discussing that, absolutely, that's gonna be a common practice that normally happens in a Brown Act committee, so if it's not, then we'll bring that up. So again, I think a big part of us is really getting down to, as was just approved, to go through the calendar dates, and again, that's how it started us, but if folks have, again, recommendations, and I see you hands up before we continue with that, I'm gonna start with Candace, and then with Julia.
The first question is for Kim, just to clarify, the date that currently shows is January 9th. If today is the starting point of that date, so the recommendation, I think you're recommending is that changes to January 25th, and then a week being added to each subsequent.
A week to review the candidate assessment form. I think we should address each issue on its own, because everything doesn't have to move because one thing moves.
With that, Julia?
That was my question, but I had a February, if we could just clarify when we say a week, is that February first? February second, okay, thank you.
And that would be a week.
February second,
Tomorrow.
2024.
Right.
So tomorrow.
Right. So again, folks can start making note of this is, and I'm not sure whether or not we can make a live document. I mean,
Well,
I
I'm
just
not,
start putting.
your board has to look at.
Right, no, yeah, you know, absolutely, they have to look at it. This is gonna be the recommendation of the committee. So in order to make that recommendation appropriate, we should be, documenting it and create a live document for them to actually review. So with that, again, based on what just discussed, January 25th, or do you say tomorrow? January 26th, the start of the.
Yeah, I was giving it today, but it's gone.
Yeah, so January 26th would be the candidate assessment form, the new date, with February 2nd being the new deadline date.
Point of order. Okay. So one thing that, so with this new motion that does pass, correct me if I'm wrong, but until the board of trustees meet on February 21st, nothing can happen. Unless I'm told otherwise. However, Mayor Metro recommend, and I'm happy to make a motion that we operate that. Until that happens, we're setting dates that far in advance. Unfortunately, that's not ideal, but, I don't know if that's gonna happen.
It's funny, man, thank you guys for that, because that's technically what we just approved, and which meaning that, as you can, I know it's not ideal, but that is what was just, that while we're recommending dates, as you just clarified, the board of trustees needs to be the one to approve it, and being that they are not gonna meet again in public until February 21st.
Can they have a special meeting?
They can have a special meeting, but we don't know when that would be. So I think that based on the dates, we really wouldn't be able to fully narrow that down until we know what date that would be, and then I think one thing that we can at least hopefully agree on is we won't be able to, I think, agree on dates, but I think on the timeline, let's say whenever, if they happen to meet a special meeting next week, then, and they approve this, then that day would start then. In other words, if they meet on February 2nd, that means the first step that we're talking about, at the candidate assessment form, that's when that date would start. Which means that the week after that, it would again continue with that. So maybe we're not providing dates to be exactly, you know, sure when that's gonna meet, but I think part of what was agreed upon, not part, what was agreed upon, is that we would provide recommended dates or, timeline rather, to ensure that that's in alignment with the discrepancy. So while we may not be able to give exact dates that are reported, we can at least address the other discrepancies that were mentioned. And that seems to be more accurate, because that's a very valid point, isn't it? So I think for the sake of that, if I may, not necessarily make a motion, is to not necessarily kill the date conversation, but really understanding that whenever that special meeting does happen, or if it's on the general meeting, that's when the work of this committee will actually continue. Because that is the motion that was approved. Gina?
So then, I just wanna be clear.
Yes, exactly.
So then, the 26th is not a thing.
Exactly correct. So again, none of these dates, unfortunately, and I know this is not to your liking, but because of what, I don't know. But again, because of, what was approved by us, the majority. After we added some of the wording on this timeline, the actual work, the access to certain things will not continue or begin until the board either approves or denies whatever process, whatever recommendations we have. Dakota?
Okay, I totally understand where this is going. In good faith, can some committee members, now that we have the rubric, can some committee members choose on their own to still start working on them and submit suggestions and revisions, even though it hasn't been approved by the board, in good faith?
These documents are open to the public. I'll leave it at that.
Excellent.
So, no, I know.
On this committee,
I-
correct, yeah,
She understood.
okay.
So,
Clarify, yeah, no, I got it.
Candace?
I would recommend that we do capture some dates that work with our students today, so that helps to inform what the calendar would be. I would hate for us to miss an opportunity. We have them in the room.
Yeah.
We have our academic calendar. I do think we should suggest some screening dates that work for our students.
Again, I think for us, while yes, we would hope that there would be a special meeting because we would need it, we cannot have that guarantee. So that's why I do propose that we work off of the calendar right now. That is the actual next scheduled Board of Trustees meeting, and go from there to make it more realistic. If something does change and they do hold a special meeting, then we may have to have a special meeting as well.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think the motion's already been made, it's more of our process. So with that, again, being that we're very in case, let's start Renee with, February 21st as that initial date, because that is the next time we know for a fact that they're gonna meet, and we're hoping that they will approve it.
So what makes February 21st? Is that a new
The
deadline?
first one, no, the first one.
Can we do first one?
Yes, sorry, just like, Kim mentioned, that being that they're gonna have a meeting in their evening, instead of January 9th, or as it says right there, January 25th, that should say February 22nd. The day after the board, because we're not gonna be meeting. Oh, no, go back up. Sorry, where you were on the bed. So where you wrote January 26th, just change that to February 22nd. Am I, okay, we're on the same page on this, right?
So this one is when the committee will get their form.
Correct.
But the committee already has it. So the committee has it.
More on the actual, again, because of what was voted.
Correct, the work
But the line was,
would be the week after that.
That would be the next cell, like the January 17th.
See, so you can, I know you're looking behind me already. So you can leave just January 22nd as is and delete all of that, and then under January 17th, there you go. And good job of making it in red, that's helpful for us.
February. That way, correct?
29.
No, so the one thing, if I can correct on this though, I mean, is that January 22nd? It's February 22nd. Oh, wait, you said January 29th. Where's the next meeting? They just had one.
February 21st.
That's right, so that first one is February, not January.
But the board thought the committee got it on January 22nd, so I would. February 22nd.
Yeah.
Como?
I think
Yeah,
it's
we both
lower
went
now.
out.
Got it. No, right, no, because what we're saying though,
The board's agenda, we went live on January 22nd, and the attachments were set on the Outlook, that's the date when everyone got it, so it was January 22nd,
Yeah.
the forms were set. So I think your 22nd, you're referring to something else.
right, because I was trying to find when then, because again, one of the things that the committee is discussing is that. I guess, yes, we can discuss this on that specific on the forum part, but one of the things that the committee agreed on is that the work for this committee. Will not continue until this new timeline is board approved, which means that this being one of the forms on the timeline. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly, that it's not going to actually start working, this committee rather, until after it's board approved, which it won't be until February 22nd.
I
Okay.
propose leaving the January 22nd because it's already gone out. It's less work for folks, because if we change it to a February date, that means that they have to send it again. It's already sent, we all have it. It's the second date that needs to reflect when is it due? Yeah.
I got January 29th.
So it won't be that date for sure, again, there would be, and because we're going off the week, so that one could be February 22nd then.
Yeah.
Because that's when it would be approved, that we actually start working on this.
And if they have a special meeting and they want to change it, they can change it.
Right. Do folks understand what we're doing on this specific part? So again, on this part again, is that the form was gonna be sent, the form was already sent, so that part technically is good, but as far as us being required and meeting, it won't happen until after the board has approved this new timeline.
We're talking about this one? I don't think any of us received it yet.
We did not, and that's part of what we're saying, is that we just got it on Monday. No, actually, we did get it on Monday, here's the catch though.
We did not.
Oh, in your calendar, it wasn't an email, in the calendar invite, that's where you'll see. Yeah. It's an attachment to the calendar, so you're right, you didn't get an email, it's part of the calendar invite. I found that out.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so carrying on, so again, we have that week, so February 22nd. And then from there, our initial meeting, and this is where the discussion would really be taking place. It says that our next scheduled meeting was gonna be about a week after that, if you stay on, there you go. It was gonna be a week after the 17th, as far as this meeting, we're already having this meeting, so we're good. So if we can continue on to the next part. Right, right, so this is for the language, for the recommendation, I believe, so I think I saw a hand over here, Ernesto.
No, sorry, people, we need to go back to that because I think on that comment, so for January 17th, sorry. That deadline, the February 22nd, we need to come back and we need to talk about this. So I agree with Raquel that we need to go and work on this, but we need to come back and make sure that we decided and we agree that on the assessment, because there's that, we're not gonna have time to talk about that today. The other part of that is, so that's the first part. So my suggestion is February 22nd be changed to February 29th. That is the next Thursday. That is my suggestion. We need to identify a date, so I'm hopeful that the 29th we can all meet, find things out there, but y'all said that we'll talk about the dates. The other piece of that too is that right around that, at the calendar, is we need to find another time to meet before that, so we're well into March. So, but I wanna talk about that first, right? I think that date needs to be February 29th. But we need to talk about that matrix first. I know Candace proposed a change and that we're gonna consider that, but we still need to talk about that change, so I wanna talk about that first.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, I agree with you.
Okay.
Do we have the meeting to come together to discuss the matrix? I think that could actually happen on the 29th.
29th, yeah.
So that the deadline remains the 22nd, and then the following week or so many days thereafter, we come together.
A week after, it's a week after.
Yeah.
Yes. Assuming that they're approving and they're meeting on that day.
Yes.
Assuming that the board is meeting.
The board that meets on that day, yeah. We're following that they're meeting on the February 21st to talk about this.
Yeah, because it's funny, because one of the things that we actually already have on our calendars is a meeting on February 22nd. According to this, that is actually going down, for that from 4 to 7. So I think instead of it making, where we already advancing on that, that would be a change, the date that would have to be changed. But we could keep February 22nd as the screening committee meeting, but not necessarily to, again, the screening of the applications wouldn't likely be done yet. However, we can keep this date as the meeting for us to have the discussion that exactly you're mentioning.
And that would be to discuss the matrix.
That would be to discuss the matrix.
That's the matrix, so that would be essentially what would happen today.
Correct.
Yeah.
So from there, as folks, I know it's a lot of dates and stuff moving around, and we can follow or keep up rather, myself included, is. Yes,
So if we come together on the 22nd to discuss the matrix, the deadline for the matrix edits to be in needs to come before that.
The 21st.
No, we need more than one day to compile everything.
What would you
Unless-
mean? What would you mean?
Hmm?
What would you mean?
So if, so you all have it. And so we want to make sure we have time to capture everybody's edits and all of that, and the board would need to look at it too, right? So how much time, what do you all think?
well, I think that was part of. Again, if I can speak now for myself as a member of this committee with regard to the discrepancies. The board does not actually look at the screening criteria that we're gonna be using as a committee. That's something according to.
Well, right now, we believe that they do, so we have to go on till that is clarified. They believe that they have a certain role, you believe, that's for you all to figure out, what they believe. Right?
Yeah.
And they get off some edits to this document.
I'm gonna get some talk away.
So how much time, let's back up from 22nd, a week maybe?
Well, we were just proposing the 22nd because we already have it on our calendar. So if you're saying you need more time, then we're gonna scratch the 22nd.
No, I'm saying we need to get your edits in time.
Correct, but we can't get the edits until the board approves this. We can't give you edits until the board approves this timeline.
Why not?
Because we don't.
But
Yeah.
they're two different things, the timeline and the looking at the assessment, you already have the form. So let's treat the form, so this is only about the form, not the timeline. So the timeline is something else, but you already have the form, like you said.
Yeah.
So when do you feel like you all as a committee would be being proactive, that you know the board has to look at it, right?
Yeah.
When should your edits, when do you all agree to get your edits, to make sure your edits are in, so that when the board does see it, that they can be seeing your edits?
I would recommend in good faith, as Kim had suggested, that we get our edits to HEB by the 15th, and then we are going to meet by the 22nd. I think that would demonstrate some level of a show of good faith.
Okay.
No, February 15th, that we have the form, in good faith, we're going to send edits by the 15th, and then we are scheduled to meet in here on the 22nd to review those edits.
Oh, I'm thank you for saying that, Candace.
Now, we won't be coming to every meeting, we'll be attending virtually. So, because there's a cost factor in bringing us from different parts of the country. So we have to be careful about the cost factor, so we will be moving virtual.
Just want to say that was my recommendation.
And it is part of our, again, one of the documents that was had that if needed, folks can join, virtually. This is not something that an entire committee can do that. We have a, Gina?
I just wanted to say, I could email you right now our calendar so that you guys have that.
But we have it.
Oh, you did?
So we didn't know that, so, you know, that week of every day for the President's Day, most institutions have one President's Day. You all, you left, so we did not realize that you have each, it's on.
What is under?
So that was
Right,
usually,
Saturday.
because President's Day is his
We have good negotiators.
Okay, so February 15th is the deadline for the edits. Did everyone hear that?
Yes,
To the candidate assessment, or let's use the same language, to the candidate assessment. Yes.
Who do we send the edit to?
Will be to us.
You can send it to the chair and AGB to make sure it's not.
As, again, one of the things that we're make sure we're in line, folks.
To us, because we're gonna make sure the document, and we're working with the board, so we wanna make sure that we get the edits, because that's a part of our partnership with Legal, and that's.
Well, it's one thing, but that's one thing that committee is recommending, and so it'd be the committee recommendations. I just want to make sure as the chair that everything appropriately sent out the way they intended. I get it. So I can send it to you. I just want to make sure that the final.
They should send it to us. Directly, that's our job.
Maybe.
Kim, Dot, Bobby, I'll get it to my comments. Okay. Arvin said
I'll
she'll
email
email
it,
our
I'll email
email
form
you.
and,
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that,
We'll make sure our job is in our lane.
So the 15th is finals week. I have two finals on that day, and I believe the other students do as well.
But you have it today.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is for the 15th, it's simple again, edits that we made already to the document that we already have. That was given to us this past Monday. We have about a couple weeks to make modifications to this specific document. So there's no screening or anything that's happening, because that's the deadline for folks to recommend edits to this document.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, we just discussed.
then, and I forgot I have the mic right here. So again, so now that we have, again, the candidate assessment form handed to us, we have our recommended edit dates. If we can continue, so again, this is one of the things of folks, I know folks had questions about not only the dates, but as Sheila pointed out, what we approved, the discrepancies. This is where we mentioned those as well, in case one of those modified, because this will be, once we get it to AGB, that's what the board is gonna move out on whatever we recommended. So that's gonna stay as is, then so be it. Ernesto?
Again, it's because it's being recorded, we make sure that the sound is appropriate.
Just make sure we're doing our due diligence. On January 25th, 2024, can we cross out, candidate assessment form will be finalized? And then that next, after that, the next line, just to make sure, actually, the whole thing will be crossed out, please, just so we're sending something clear. After those three bullet points.
Right, but that's not happening.
Correct. I just want to make sure we're doing it.
The next timeline will reflect, the next timeline will reflect, what, you know, whatever modifications happen. Okay, so I just wanna make sure we're not gonna go back and try to redo all the wording, because that work will happen on the timeline in another spot.
Thank you. So again, because I want to make sure, again, we only have 15 minutes of this, and this is the one issue that we are gonna have. We are a Brown Act committee, meaning that any and all work, especially with the confidentiality agreement that we just signed, has to happen here as a committee. So as I know folks want to possibly do extra work, but whatever, if we don't finish it now, it becomes a danger of this. So if folks have recommendations, they can send it between now and 5 o'clock to make sure that it's adhered to. That's one thing I want to make sure we're good on, so we can continue on. Again, I know folks have this document, we can make recommendations as we go along. We may not capture it all right now, but as long as we get them before whether you're individual ones, then we should be fine. So continuing on them, so we got January 25th as far as what we're doing here today, for the most part.
Any part that folks want, recommendations on that next phrase? If we have it on here, it says the screening committee and the board of trustees will be reviewing candidate materials using candidate assessment for each candidate. James?
I think that the box immediately below right there that you just referenced speaks to the motion that Dr. Rose, put forward, which the board bylaw 2431 doesn't include the board of trustees as part of the screening committee. And so that would just, yeah, I don't know if we strike it or if it needs to be reworded, but that's the language that I think needs to be addressed. And then I think that February 20th, at the end of that portion too, might change.
Yeah, understood. I think that would be inaccurate based off the motion that was made. So thank you. And that's why I wanted to make sure we're going through this. Again, one of the things, this is our recommendations to the board, whether that gets approved, that'll be on the trip, but I want to make sure that as our motion is made, that's appropriately, listed. So moving on to more on February 12th, that would, again, have to be reconsidering.
That's already been announced nationally.
It may be announced, but that's gonna be something that it's gonna, again, it won't coincide because the board won't meet until the February 20th.
So,
Actually, no, that part of the.
So, yeah, well, the search has been launched.
Yeah.
So unless you wanna go back and pull your ads and then pay again for ads to be re-released with a new date, which is thousands of dollars, then that's something that you have to consider with budgetary constraints and so forth. So the candidate pool has been responding to a February 12th full consideration deadline. And so I just wanna, so just changing that date would be, it could be done,
No,
but there will be some costs associated with it.
no, I was thinking about more on, sorry, I was thinking about more on the screening part, but exactly, if anything that actually help us to ensure we know exactly how many applicants we have to screen, so as to get to the point of selecting screening dates, it'll be a lot easier.
May I ask, may I request that we get access to the candidates, like right after the matrix is like approved?
Well, that's the plan.
Yeah. So
That was the plan today.
But like, whatever that is, if it's
Yeah, once the
February,
board approves it, yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
it's February 22nd or
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever,
Yeah.
because you all will have been, so the point is that we want to make sure you have enough time to read, but also that you're not reading candidates before the matrix of this form is approved, because we want to eliminate as much as we can unconscious bias.
The other thing would be, and we're operating that February 21st is the meeting, so if the meeting happens earlier, then it could be earlier.
If they have a special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't work much.
Thank you. So as we're continuing on, again, moving on, so we have the 12th, February 20th is gonna have to change for sure. But whenever, that'll be dependent on the date as far as the screening, because we're not gonna have access just yet. James?
Proposed to move February 20th to March 1st to work with the students. March 8th.
So that'll be again, once the board approves, hopefully this new timeline, that'll mean that, and that's as far as how many weeks we can say to have screening. So if we get the approval on 22nd, that would give us how many days for screening?
It should be almost 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was gonna be anyway. So again, this all make sure that it says that it works with the students. That they mentioned March 1st or 2nd.
Or marketing. Or might have another week.
I have a question. How many applications do you foresee, what is the regular amount, the average, and how much time is usually used to review each application?
So the question was, how many applicants are there received on the norm, and on average, how much time is used to review each application?
Typically,
Yeah, on average.
Usually, we would consider at least 2 weekends. But that's for individuals who are able to review at any point that they have free time at home with weekends, and obviously that's not true for many of us.
So 2 weekends, then 2 weeks.
2 weekends.
Right, so that's, like, so for people who are working, doing it during their, that's, right? If we're giving 2 weekends for people who can review at home, then
By default, that would be 2 weeks.
it would be.
I'm sorry, I think so reviewing, if you, for instance, if we were going according to this timeline, you would start reviewing today until February 20th.
Correct,
That would have been a month.
correct,
But you asked typically.
correct, yeah.
So not what
If
we
you
are.
wanna give us a bond, I'm ready to be.
So I'm just saying, but typically, it is a couple of weeks, because people can't read whatever they want.
Thank you, so
To
again,
clarify, when you're saying 2 weekends, are you saying 4 days or 2 full?
No.
It's 2 weekends, at least 2 weekends, given we count the weekdays.
Okay.
But not everyone is able to do that.
Got it, yeah.
that's it, so to carry on with the moving again, so we're looking February 20th. I know there was a date that was recommended, can I get that clarified?
You're looking at the calendar.
I think that, okay,
Students.
that's better. That's a Friday, March 1st?
So yeah, so that's, I need to clarify, so I think that we need to look at the week of the 11th, March 11th. To replicate the amount of time, so, yeah, that was a week because that was considering that we were gonna get the access to the applications on February 22nd. So if you're all looking at the calendar, February 22nd is a Thursday.
Yeah.
I would propose then that the week of the 10th, we get those, so someday, I would say just to give 3 weeks at minimum, March 14th. And that is, right before PD day, that's a great kind of, for our campus partners. I don't know if that's a good compromise, March 14th.
Oh,
That's 3 weeks.
3 weeks, you guys, so why it's not a month? Which part?
Why don't we go very small? We've added a lot of experience, so.
I think that's what that's what we're trying to look at, but
We should have received these things.
see,
Had 8 days to review in between dates. But now we're exceeding that.
not necessarily, so I think what we're going off of is trying to coincide with the board of trustees date. So I get a see, again, hopefully they approve it on the February 21st meeting. So really our actions, because it still needs to be screened, like let's say on the 22nd when we have our meeting. I see it, that's when we're gonna finalize the candidate interview, like the assessment form thing.
So meeting number 3 is still
It's
going to remain as a 22nd.
correct, but what's gonna happen during that meeting is not gonna be what's listed there, but rather, or it's what's more on finalized, the assessment form, and then from there, once that's finalized, we're gonna have access to start reviewing. So just like they mentioned, once you start reviewing, they originally gave us a month, like supposedly, but it was about 3 weeks now, so it's actually a little bit less. But we're trying to, again, expedite to coincide with the schedule that they originally gave.
Oh,
Got it? So again, so with that, yep, so we got the deadline of March 14th as far as when we're gonna finish screening. Then we continue on with our, again, at our meeting on the 22nd, that's when you finalize the matrix. Continue on with the proposed schedule. See, this is where, as you mentioned, the different dates, so let's say if we're done, screening and scoring on the 14th, which originally was gonna be, the second we have that meeting, the interview committee's role is one that continues after that. And it's after the 14th, so invested, so it wouldn't be the 22nd, that would be the March 14th, or whatever date that would be. We have to, actually, I think that's what we're talking about, we have to schedule another meeting that would actually do everything that we're saying on that date. Again, so everything that's selected right now is the 22nd on the calendar, as it is right now, would actually happen on the 14th. Do you understand that? Am I right?
I just want confirmation, to make sure that I'm understanding. Well, if you can please scroll up to the top page, the January 9th. See. So just to confirm, we were supposed to receive the documents on the 9th, but we received them 40 days later, which was Monday the 22nd. Correct. January the 17th is what we're discussing now, which is
finalizing any edits and sending them to you to be relayed over to each.
Send it to us, no.
Yeah, they want them to.
Not send- Because we don't wanna introduce any bias on his part that could be, yeah.
So January 17th is now February 5th. Okay, so then we are at January 25th, okay, so today, so we crossed those 3 bullet points up, yeah, I've met. Now we are, the application closes on the 12th, that's staying as is, and then February 20th, that's in the air right now, to be changed to March 14th. Correct. Okay. Now, February 22nd, is now the new matrix date. Correct. So why don't we just list it under January 17th rather than the one somewhere else?
No, because the edits, so again, one thing that the matrix date was only the edits, not the actual meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, so this is to receive it?
See, that's me, I have to send it to.
Because January,
So that they fix it by the way.
Because there's one thing that you're mentioning is even though we make these edits, and this is one thing I know it's getting a lot of stuff happening. But I want to make sure that even though we're making these recommended edits, as HB made it clear, the board still has to approve these edits, which is why even though we put it as the 15th, we need to give them time for their board meeting, so that when they meet on the 21st, it still meets their requirements.
And their agenda doesn't go live.
Yes.
Friday. So they can still call it, special meeting.
Exactly, they can still, but we're hoping they do, to be frank, but, so again, Manuel, you good with who we are so far?
yeah, so just to confirm, then February 22nd is no longer happening.
Not that was set up that way, if you notice, what everything helped right in the minutes to finalize the, so again, one thing that we're supposed to have done is meeting and actually discussing.
So we're still gonna meet, only the agenda item is gonna be different.
Yeah. Recommend that they maintain all the meeting polls they have on the calendar, because the content might change, have that day.
So again, one of the things that, Kim just mentioned, AGB, is that again, we have certain, dates on our calendar that are reserved. Don't cancel them, it's gonna be, the content of the said meetings might change, but we may try to keep said meetings. Again, it's not like, again, it won't likely coincide with what we're actually trying to do, but trying to get y'all out of here. So again, February 22nd now, finance matrix, which means that we actually have to schedule a new meeting, whether it be on the 14th or the 15th of March, to serve as what was gonna happen. Which is why I was mentioning, it's not likely that the ones that are in late February would actually be able to happen, to give folks enough time to actually read said applications. And miss them?
Alright, I feel bad. No, I feel bad against the run over. I feel bad. Let him talk.
May I make a motion that, we extend this meeting for 15 minutes so you can finish some of these topics?
Motion has been made. Second by Manuel, discussion.
I have to leave, like I absolutely have to leave like right now. So you all can stay, but I gotta go.
Staff quorum, so we'll be good if that's square. So we have a motion, we have a second, a motion to extend by 15 minutes. Do you approve by unanimous consent? Approve, so meeting will be extended for 15 minutes to 5:15. So carrying on with again, looking at the dates as we discussed. If the deadline for submitting our scores is March 14th, which really was gonna be on February 20th. It's 2 days to our next meeting. So when March 14th is our new deadline for submitting scores, then we need to schedule a time for us to actually meet and discuss that what was supposed to happen on the 22nd. James?
Proposed March 18th.
They're gonna both fit out the academic calendar on there as well, so that'll help make the reason why. Have you noticed there's something happening on the 15th? Actually, hold on, I'm gonna say first because, no, I'll actually be at a conference that day.
Also be at a conference.
No.
If
Yeah.
we can move it on like maybe the 20th or later.
21st.
Or 21st, yeah, 21st could be good if that also.
So the original recommendation was March 18th, however, we have a number of our students at a conference and chair as well, so the recommended date as of right now is March 21st,
Alright, we actually do 22nd.
which is a Friday.
Yes. It's a Thursday.
We're looking at March. We're looking at March.
March 22nd is a Friday.
Yeah. So again, these are recommended dates, obviously that we're hoping works for us and we'll work with the trustees as well. Nothing is guaranteed, I want to make that crystal clear and move along with everything that we're discussing here today. So again, we have the date, so again, we have a possible date, is there any other, changes, recommendations on the wording? Ernesto?
Sorry, March 22nd?
March the second is under for the next one.
Yeah, no, but it's just more of a process that we're gonna modify that. Matt?
The new deadline, screening application reading committee, members send individual top unranked candidates, I'd like to change that to ranked candidates.
But no, that's what was proposed, that's
Oh.
recommended.
So I just wanted to call out that, so the full consideration date is February 24th. And of course, we can let the candidate pool know that February 12th, is a full consideration date. But that candidate pool will not hear for over a month about their status. That could cause our pool to shrink.
Unless, yes, exactly, unless there's a special meeting, so again, going back to the possibility of that meeting. So one of the things that was asked, I'm gonna make sure that recommended edit was that instead of unranked. No, maybe, but it would depend on the board, but I think they. Yeah, I would recommend that we do, but we'd have to depend on that, that we can actually maybe get back to the actual process. So one of the things, I mean, the recommendation was to change unranked, ranked.
On the one here that we're looking at.
Yeah, so, where it says, noon deadline screening application reading committee, where it says members send individual top 8 unranked candidates for interview consideration to consultants by noon. The recommendation is, to state that to rank, which I can't say is a normal practice for the person that we have there. So it's probably different, I know it's, that's what I think why the recommendation is.
Yeah, it's not a best practice, but that's what you want to recommend. But
Any other recommendations on that? So again, answer is gonna be approved, but one of the things, Corey, see possibly.
I was gonna say, I don't think they should be ranked.
I agree. Can we make a note to the board that we don't, that the committee was, not in agreement?
Yeah, not a consensus, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
May I please get a definition between what is unranked and ranked?
I would say ranked is your number 1 candidate first, number 2 candidate second, all the way to 8. Unranked would be a random order that you
Based on-
submitted to.
We're happy to hire any one of these 8 people, whoever you choose.
So again, these 8 would actually be the ones and to be towards interview, not selected by the board just yet. So that's the one thing that we want to make, that these are and that's why it'd be different for the ranking, because these would be the top 8 that would want to be interviewed. The board is not yet at that level. This is where the interview committee of who would the recommended to be interviewed. Tracy? And then, setting the steps today, folks.
Yeah.
You're not watching.
Yes.
Thanks, I can't believe you're still here after 3 hours. However, I have to, what's the argument against ranking?
That's always proposed by AGB
Oh,
and for some of the committee members as well. I didn't hear an argument, I just heard that they didn't want it. Yeah, so Ben, we have the question as far as, again, the argument against it. So if I may, we have Elena with her hand, and then, Mo, were you on the same comment? Okay, so we'll go with Elena and then.
Okay. I would request unranked because I'm just looking at the paperwork and I'm not able to ask interview questions. So for me to rank people based on just the paperwork, I think is difficult. I wouldn't mind just saying, I like these 8 on paper, and then y'all, in the interview committee, you're the one that's gonna meet them, you're the one that's gonna interact with them. So I would recommend unranked, that's.
That makes sense. I think that's the part that's missing as far as that, Mo. And again, this is 506 folks, and FYI, so if you want to continue at the other extension, hopefully.
I mean, I just wanted to add on to that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if you do rank it and then you're sending it to the interview committee, like, wouldn't that cause bias, like subconsciously, that they're gonna know, oh, this is a ranking number, you know, top number 1. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. And then, James.
I agree with all the points that are being made, and I think it's important, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to suggest submitting to the board of trustees the language that they're ranked candidates. And that way, hopefully, you can push, if there's a second, we can push a vote right now to decide if that's something that we do want to suggest to them, or if that people are, if we don't have the votes to do that, then we'll leave it as unranked.
I'm sorry, say that again, I'm not following.
So I'd like to enter a motion to submit it as ranked candidates in the interest that we then hold a vote.
So again, as much as, yeah, so there is a motion, doesn't mean folks have to agree with it, there is a motion that we vote to have it state ranked because we don't have a consensus, but there is a motion on the floor to have us vote on that. Do I have a second? Second with Matt, and I don't think we have a consensus on this, we're already with the. Renee, we can with the roll call vote, and again, what you're voting for is yay to have it ranked, and a nay to have it unranked.
Or abstain.
Or abstain, of course. So, hold on, clarification, am I right?
So, if we were to have 8 unranked, by February 20, 2 days later, that meeting would consist of selecting 4 of those 8.
So again, remember, ignore the February, read on March 14th. So, but same process, yes. So again, no, because what it would be, and this is where, again, also, correct for the person that's mentioning, motioning rather. The 8 members, this is not going to the board yet, it's going to the interview committee. So that's gonna be the 8 that the folks are screening. And then those are going to the interview committee, and then from the interview committee, they go to the board. So whether or not at what point they're ranked, I think it'd be more on the board part. We have Raquel and then Sheila.
I think there's clarification on my ranked or unranked 8 people is not going to the committee, it's going to the consultants.
See,
So what comes to the committee, I don't know, right? They're gonna go do their magic, so we're not gonna know whose 8 is what.
Right.
Correct.
It's anonymous. Then when
Yes.
you get the frequencies on the spreadsheet, you're gonna see how many people got voted on by each committee member. That's gonna tell you where, this person got 10, this person got 7, this person got 3. So you're gonna have a natural sorting because of the way you chose 8 people.
Thank you, no, that's clarifying. Not sure if that helps clear things up, James.
It's clear, yeah.
Do you want to keep with the motion or?
I have a question. James.
Sorry, could I just,
Oh,
real
please.
quick? So I'm not sure if this would change the motion, which is why I'm bringing it up now. So I'm sorry, have we addressed that second sentence, the board of trustees thing?
No, and that's, right now we're still on our part.
Okay,
Can I motion to amend this language to remove the second sentence?
So again, it's because we're still on the editing part, that's fine, but because there's not consensus on the unranked part, which is why you made that motion, but if that's not gonna be part of the discussion, then you can either kill your own motion.
Yeah, I'd like to fill that motion.
Cool, motion killed, comment from Sheila on that part, and then we'll get back to you.
yeah, so I would like that second sentence stricken from the timeline because we're recommending that the board revise this timeline in order to comply with their policy 2431, which states that they do not participate in the screening.
Correct, thank you. And then with that, Ella?
I just had a question, like for clarification purposes, because you did mention that there will be somewhat of like a plot of thoughts. So let's say suppose this does become ring, will we see like the ring of the thought, or is it still just going through the thought, whether it's ring or on ring?
You'll see, for instance, you'll see the candidate names, and then you'll see the number of votes they got next to their name. So you'll get to see how many people on this committee rank a certain person, you know, how many times. You're gonna see the frequency, but you won't see who voted for who. You won't see that. It's anonymous. You'll just see the candidate's number and the number of times somebody on this committee chose them on their list. And then you're gonna have a natural clustering, and then there's, you know, some in the middle, and then some people won't get any.
Yeah, I was just a bit confused on like, if it does become rank, would anything change because of that, or?
Then you have a discussion. That's when you use your candidate assessment forms. And you say, well, this person was only got 5 votes, but I want to speak into why I think they should be. And then that's when you pull out your individual notes, your candidate assessment form, because that's when you put your notes. So for instance, sometimes we ask, if there's somebody who gave this person, there's only 5 votes. If somebody wants to, advocate for this person, you want to speak up, you don't call anybody out. If somebody wants to speak up, they speak up. If nobody says anything, that's good.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
So carrying on in a few minutes, we still have left again. So we have an additional meeting that's recommended to take place on the March 22nd.
Again, that would be for the actual, what's supposed to take place on the 22nd. That's not that. Introduce candidate interview committee's role moving forward, review and confirmation of semifinalist interview schedule. So that would be what's happening on March 22nd, meaning that whatever's happening on February 26th or 29th, all of that would also be modified to coincide with that 22nd dates. So we look at that again, February 22nd, or March 22nd, now rather, continuing with the, sorry, close my calendar, we're meeting on the 22nd. Then it would be on March either 28th or 29th that it would be that next meeting, if I'm not mistaken, for the deadline kind of interview thing. Am I seeing that correct? So there's a 4-day difference, but one will used to be on a Thursday, the other one is now, what did he say?
For the February 26th.
26th, right, so it was a weekend, it was a Friday to Monday, so that initial February 22nd meeting, or that is there, the next meeting on the 26th for the deadline, kind of the interview committee, was supposed to be 5 days. Again, I would not recommend anyway, because that would also include a weekend when the classified folks would not be able to take part. So now that we have the 27th, then I would recommend those full 5 days to have a follow-up on March 29th, which is that next Friday.
On our academic calendar, we're off for March 29th.
Yeah, this is that, I think it's on my calendar, but I,
So to the 28th.
so it'll be the 28th, yeah. So again, the deadline candidate interview committee, from February 26th moved to March 28th, which means that the February 28th and 29th interviews would actually be, different as well, from February 28th, 29th. Would that probably that following week? Is that a week time, or what was the difference on that? It was only a 2-day difference from the actual. That was the deadline. Right?
Well, you wouldn't, the reason why is because we don't expect you to have time to develop questions. So we draft some questions and we put on there how this relates to the profile. And so you can see the direct correlation for how the questions came about based on the profile and the rubric. And so with that, you've already been practicing that. So then you would be able to look at the questions and see the correlation as well as the book. And so the thing that's really important is that you want to make sure that questions reflect the information that you want to get.
So again, as we're calling right now,
The part where it's actually confusing because in the interview questions on the timeline itself, at the very top, the semifinalist interview questions are reviewed and determined by the candidate interview committee. So that's actually part of the language that's here. No, that's not, no, that make it, but again, it's not necessarily the board or AGB, it's the interview committee. So that's the part, I think that was contradictory, just I think, yeah. Is it that you guys, that y'all would provide the questions?
We draft some questions.
Okay, drafting, but not actually finding.
Right, we draft, just like we do in the rubric.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We draft it for you, because we don't expect you to come up with that. But, and you, we're experts in this, and so best practice, we know how to do this, and we've been doing it, so why would we ask you to that?
Thank you. Ellen? Actually, hold on, I'm sorry, we're at time, so unless we get an extension, we're gonna have to, James.
Move to accept by 10 minutes.
Hopefully,
Sister, another half hour. And then we can try to-
hopefully we'll finish short, so the amendment was to make it 30. So James, no.
I don't think you can move to extend by more than you.
Right.
The first one? So 15 again or 10, yeah, so 15 again, motion to provide 15, second,
Awesome.
Raquel, unanimous consent, or we gotta do roll call? Thank you very much, so next at 5:30, hopefully we're done, please, so Ellen.
Also, in regards to, moving it from February 26th to March 28th, given that there is like a weekend over it, and so would that still be for the, so like I'm asking because you did mention that like having just 4 days in practice is a bit short. So is there like a possibility of just perhaps like moving it to April 1st or?
So for the candidate, so I have March 14th for candidate, so let's see, March 14th.
That's what the screening will end.
Okay, then we have March 28th for the deadline for them to, the candidate.
So y'all had, as far as interview component,
Mhm.
I think that's where
We asked committee will also be as far as that tight deadline where February 22nd was get an interview committee, review drafts, semifinals, interview questions. February 26th was a deadline for us to submit those changes. And then February 28th, so really we're making that 4 day time to make edits to the interview questions. And then that they were gonna be approved about 2 days before the actual interview questions would be in effect, when interviews would take place. I think, to your question, that's on the same one that I had originally, but according to what Kim was just mentioning, the drafts of the interview questions themselves, it was almost already gonna be done. And whether or not we don't finish them on the 22nd, then folks would have until the 26th to actually make those edits, which was gonna be, the majority of that weekend was, of that time frame was on the weekend. However, the majority of the next proposed one is not.
Just point of clarification, the people who are gonna work on those questions are just the interview committee, not.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So again, before we start, this is more folks, we have, again, you're mentioning the 28th, and I already mentioned that now we can have that new deadline for folks to submit questions. Now the question will be as far as when an interview would need be to take place, because according to what you had there, it was a short timeline, that's what we want to make sure that's going to be accurate, being that that's on, let's say it's 28th, and they will not be able to start the interviews until that week after, because we're closed on the 29th, so that week of April 1st. So I'm not sure whether it be the April 1st itself, or the second, or what dates, Candace?
When are the candidates notified that they are part of the semi-finalist
They will
round?
be notified after that meeting where we do the ranking.
Okay,
After the frequency meeting, you're gonna come out of that meeting
with the candidates that would be invited for the semi-finalist round, so that date, Tito, was
Yeah.
March. Go up a little bit, I'm sorry, would you mind? So that's the 22nd, March 22nd.
Correct. So then again, March 26th would be that every day, we'd have the deadline for the questions. So now it'd be a matter of, according to this, continuing the same.
Yeah, I'm just saying that can happen in parallel, like, right, on the 22nd, if the committee is determining the folks who are going forward, they can be notified and start to plan for being on site for those interviews.
That's virtual.
Oh, virtual, okay, so then, they could be notified while the committee is working on the interview questions, so I wouldn't be concerned that March 28th, and then the next week is April, the first week of April, that they'd be notified.
The candidate interview questions need to be finalized before.
Because they receive them?
No, because bias could be, you could start writing questions to fit somebody that you like. So the questions have to be done.
And that you'll invite.
Right, that's why on this count, you see, we had the deadlines for the candidate interview. Let me see, we had some edits, so that's why we had that short window, so that the committee, we've already drafted it for you, and you're gonna be inviting these folks this week, but this calendar had you, selecting them and handing it off to the candidate interview committee on the 22nd. And so then the candidate interview committee would have kicked in on the 22nd, and the only thing they would have to do is to review those questions for the interviews. That's what was there before, and you want them reviewing those before they select, before they move forward, okay? We're trying to keep bias out of it as much as we can. And that's why you're only gonna send your top candidates or anything to us, because as the chair, you don't wanna be seen as having undue influence.
So that being said, again, it's not like that timeframe, so we have that week of April 1st, I would like to do for the interviews, James.
We propose April 1st and 2nd for the 2 full days of interviews.
That would be a Monday and Tuesday, again, so this is more for those that are part of the interview committee, that need to make yourselves available, which is not everybody.
Well, as we look at the campus interviews, we already have those dates, second, third, and fourth, so they're already on your calendars. They're not, because that was the finalist.
Right.
So if you wanna recommend those dates, the board has already passed those dates.
So they're not, I mean, the board won't be a part of that level yet, it's just the interview committee.
No, they're interviewing the finalists, the board, that's April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the board will be interviewing the finalists.
That was according to the original timeline, they won't have.
So what I'm saying is, for you now, you're saying you wanna use those dates because.
Second and third.
Yeah, that's the
Second and
thing.
third.
Well, and what I'm saying is that since those are already there and the board already has them as well, if it is in fact the board does interview semifinalists, that those dates are there already.
Gotcha.
So would it make sense to propose that since their dates are blocked out, we hold it 2nd, 3rd?
Correct. So then it would be, yeah, the second, the already got that there, and then board.
So then now you're done, so maybe.
Right. Exactly, I think that was the question I had as well, where the board, according to, again, something that she had mentioned as far as the discrepancy, the board does not interview the semifinalists, they interview the finalists. Correct? That's how I understood it.
Right.
So you just take those dates for semis, and then they would have to establish some new dates for that.
What?
The board would.
So
Right.
so basically, to clarify, our current April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the only thing you're changing is you're adding semi in front of class.
Exactly. That's your recommendation, and then the board would determine another set of dates that they agree this timeline for the finals.
James?
So for the box that currently says April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we would probably propose to strike those dates right now as they are, and then not suggest new dates, and leave that up to the board and to AD research.
No, we're not striking it, we're just adding semi.
We have to strike the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th because we're not doing 3 days of anything, we're doing 2 days.
Right, yes, I get you, but it's listed as, I see what you're trying to do, I'm just saying, so again, I mean, if you get on the bottom, the actual April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, where it says the actual dates, that we could strike, because that is, we're gonna be interviewing on those dates, but whenever the board, after all this said and done, they're gonna schedule their stuff much later.
Gotcha.
But I would keep the 3 days, because if you end up, it's easier to give you time back than to add some more time. So I would say keep the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, those 3 days, because this committee is, you wanna make sure you give everybody time for the deliberations and so forth after the semis interviews. And so you might end up needing that time, especially if you interview more than 8 people.
And then I propose that all remaining dates and boxes just be revised as necessary. that, I don't know that we have any suggestions for anything that remains on the following pages.
Right, exactly, that's because the committee component is done, so that would be actually, that's the extent of our involvement, Ella?
I was wondering if there is flexibility in moving, from April second, third, fourth to first, second, and third, because the following week will be the week of midterm, and some professors do like to do it a week early, which might be that week, and for classes that happen Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually they try to do it later for the week, and for classes for Tuesday and Thursday, they will do it on Tuesday, on Thursday, which if we block all that whole time, then I will have to miss it.
Okay, again, the original request was gonna be April first and second anyway, so I wouldn't have a problem with that, I want to make sure the committee is on board. And I'm seeing head nods, so yes, so I mean, the amending is on instead of, yeah. So, if there are,
That Monday after Easter is considered special, but I've thrown it out there, it's not.
so again, as was agreed, again, the rest of the dates, because they are involved with the board, while they won't be what it is, that will be determined by the board, in coinciding with the respective, change in dates that we've already established. Good morning.
You might wanna hold that date, because, so, say for instance, if you can't come at a certain time on one interview day, we can, you can have some flexibility during that week, if we might end up interviewing candidates across 3 days instead of 2 days, so you wanna give yourself that time, so maybe just hold no.
Gavin? Where's the mic?
I make a motion to make this recorded meeting public for the community. I don't see on the agenda, that's why.
Right, again, we are on Brown Act, so the fact that it is a public meeting, I'm not sure where it would be, based. But don't see why that wouldn't be.
It's normally our PCC YouTube channel.
Yeah, so again, no, even though it's not, streaming, it should be published, on our YouTube channel. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
So we made a.
Well, it was just going, so I guess we can, because we want to make sure that it actually does happen, and we're not sure that it will. So I think the motion is, so the motion is to ensure and ask that this meeting that is being recorded be posted to the PCC YouTube channel. It was seconded by Ernesto. Any, opposition, moving by Ernesto?
Roll call, as many people are calling.
Carry on. You make sure we have it for.
Alright, yeah, the second, I'm sorry.
Ernesto.
Yeah.
Say again, so we're gonna, we can read the motion once more.
So the motion is to request that the Zoom recording be posted on, the YouTube channel. Or to request that it get posted on. Avery Bradley.
Aye.
Bella Fontaine, none.
Hi.
Mario Diaz,
Aye.
Candace Jones,
Aye.
Tito Altamirano,
Aye.
Carol Calandra,
Aye.
Cory Rojo,
Aye.
Diane Cristian absent, Elena Lee, Ella Tang, Emmanuel Gomez,
Aye.
Ernesto Barriga,
Aye.
Gabriela Perez,
Hi.
Gina Lopez, absent, Irene Wong, James Bull,
Aye.
John Quintanilla,
Aye.
Julia McKeown,
Aye.
Marilyn Johnson,
Aye.
Matt Kamara,
Aye.
Melissa Anderson, Moshe Mahamati,
Aye.
Raquel Torres Ratana,
Hi.
Sheila Rose,
Hi.
Sylvia Talar, Tracy Sachi, and then Wayne Schroeder.
Aye.
So 4 absent and 23 ayes.
Thank you.
I just wanted clarification regarding the dates, so are we sure, like for sure we're doing 2 dates for the semi-finalist interview, because I was confused, that the part of the discussion was possibly doing it for 3 days.
I think we're holding 3 days.
Okay.
But the interview's going to.
So are we moving on first to serve, is that? Okay, thank you.
So I'm gonna use some calendar, sorry, I'll make that, instead of April first to second, just read April first to the third, please. James? 1 minute.
In this final minute, in the interest of time, I just want to be brief, but I do want to point out that anywhere that we do have the Board of Trustees involvement in drafting semifinalist interview questions, participating in interview, anything, the Board of Trustees are not listed as part of the makeup for the interview committee according to the board bylaw.
Thank you. So again, speaking to what we all moved as a motion to the discrepancy component, so I'm not sure you wanna catch that. I mean, so I.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if there are no further suggestions, I can make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
30 seconds.
Say again,
30 seconds.
here or?
Here.
Okay, so before that motion is understood, you actually, yeah, so, yes, go ahead.
So just, I want to talk about the selection criteria really quick. When you guys are reviewing it, you're only looking at paper and pen typing. So make sure when you are looking at the questions that you're able to, you know what you're gonna be looking for in the application on paper. If you have questions about it, come with it for the next meeting. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're recognizing what we're actually screening for. I see it come up a lot of times where some people may not understand what exactly that criteria is. But just make sure you come with questions, and that's all I can say on that screening criteria.
Excellent, thank you.
And I know that we thought we were getting the profile, but please read the profile next to the candidate assessment form so that you can start to align exactly what you're just saying. And so you can see how they map onto each other, and that can help you with discerning what you're looking for in the candidate's letter of interest and their CV.
And the job description. So we're aligning it to both as was previously, approved. Ernesto, quickly.
I'm sorry.
And can I also request we get a email about all these changes that we proposed, please, just to be clear and make sure that we have that, no pressure, I'm sorry. Just for charity's sake.
Thank you, excellent. So with that, if no further business, there's a motion on the floor to adjourn. James. Cool. With that.
Wait, dude.
Meeting. Wait, who seconded it?
Yeah.
Julia seconded it. So with that, meeting adjourned.